A Zae Men potato chip advertisement, chosen by the world's best, is the ultimate feeling of satisfaction. The person holding the chips in the photo is a cool-looking young man. Sunlight streamed down on the poster, accompanied by the sounds of bustling crowds. The sun's rays seemed to scorch the entire arena. Outside, a dense crowd lined up to enter, and the potato chip poster was also displayed at the gaming tournament. While it was scorching outside, inside the arena was a spectacular place with state-of-the-art equipment. The stands were packed with people surrounding a central stage. The commentator spoke up. Finally, here he is, the main event of today. The entire arena erupted in cheers. The spotlight illuminated the small figure walking onto the stage under the commentator's announcement. 6-time World Championship MVP, 7-time World Championship MVP. And here he is, under the sunlight, surrounded by savage giants. A weak voice called out, "My name is Lee Tae-ho, sir." He looked like an ant trembling among this crowd. The dazzling stage suddenly transformed into a desolate place with a giant tribe. The arena turned into an old, dilapidated building. Nothing made sense. The two giants assessed him. "Tae-ho, what an unusual name, and your outfit is so strange. So small we see." Suddenly, the two men glared at each other and let out a shout. The bald one immediately turned and cursed. "You bastard, you're the one who killed me." The other laughed. "What's this? It's you." The atmosphere became tense, like a war was about to break out. They all looked fierce. Faced with this terror, Tae-ho didn't know what to do. He was stuck between two extremes. They didn't even acknowledge him. Tae-ho panicked. What's going on? Why suddenly? Are they enemies who fought before? One was as fiery as a flame, the other as cold as ice. Suddenly, they put their arms around each other, laughing loudly. "You made it to Valhalla because of me. What a great fight." Their playful punches were incredibly destructive. "But if you're here, that means you died right after." Oh, that's at that time a conversation only the two of them understood. The brown-haired one pointed at the scar on his stomach and casually said, "I was defeated by a kid with 5 braids, yelled 'Father,' and stabbed me in the gut." The bald one immediately understood and yelled, "That was Bayer." He jumped joyfully like a child. He avenged Father. The brown-haired one also praised him. "You taught your son well. He'll become a great warrior." "No, he already is a great warrior." The bald one proudly thanked him. A chaotic scene unfolded before Tae-ho. He couldn't grasp the culture of this place and was shocked into a stupor. "How did I even get to this godforsaken place?" Rewinding time to the tournament. Tae-ho and his teammates were in an intense match. He was about to secure his 3rd consecutive world championship win. Suddenly, everything around him went numb. He collapsed on the keyboard, ending the flashback there. He scratched his head, his soul wanting to leave his body. He realized, could I have actually died back then? Is this not a dream? While panicking, a hand reached out to him. A white-haired girl confidently introduced him. "This man is a champion. He has won dozens of battles." Just hearing those words, the giants excitedly shouted, "Champion, a duel king, small, but he seems okay. His skills look good. I want to fight him." Tae-ho, still shocked, was hit with another surprise by this girl. He turned to look at her, tense. She could still wink at him, showing she was very familiar with this scene. Tae-ho remembered, right, it's because of this girl, and she's winking. Rewinding again to the tournament, Tae-ho collapsed on the keyboard. His teammates immediately rushed over to check on him. He had turned into a shadow that no one could see. He could only stand there and watch himself die. "Is that me?" Suddenly, a dazzling light appeared, making Tae-ho reflexively avoid it. The white-haired girl flew down from the sky, declaring him the soul of a warrior who had died after a glorious battle. Her outfit was unlike anything from the modern era. She called out to Tae-ho, "Come here." Hearing her voice, he tried to open his eyes and look towards the light. Tae-ho didn't understand what she was saying. "Died. What does that mean?" He saw something glittering on her dress and wondered to himself, "Am I dead?" Her pretty face and sweet voice kept calling to him, "Come with me." She reached out her hand to Tae-ho, but he was still confused. "Go where? To what place? Don't tell me it's hell." Ignoring his countless questions, the white-haired girl touched his hand. Immediately, she flew into a colorful space too fast, causing Tae-ho to cry out in fear. She then happily answered his question, "We're going to Valhalla." Tae-ho was still afraid, not understanding what she said. "What, what hall?" The multicolored light shot straight up into the sky, along with Tae-ho's scream. The flashback ended there. After calming down, Tae-ho carefully considered it. Valhalla isn't the afterworld from Norse mythology, a place only warriors who have fallen in battle can go. I learned that in a game. Could they have mistaken me for a great warrior? Tae-ho saw the girl's confident expression and knew, that look says it all. He tried to explain to her, "I'm not a real warrior. I'm a professional gamer, a game player," but she misunderstood. "A game, you mean a duel or a one-on-one fight?" Tae-ho sighed, "It's not like that." Tae-ho told her, "First, can you take me back to where I was?" Before he could finish, a loud sound rang out. Her expression also became serious. A giant blew a horn loudly, signaling something urgent. The girl quickly ran off, her expression even more serious. "An attack, everyone prepare for battle." At her words, the Valhalla warriors became full of energy. Their shouts filled the air, making Tae-ho scream in fear. Too chaotic. The battle between the Valhalla warriors and the monster tribe began. Both sides charged at each other, dust flying everywhere. The attackers looked like wolves, but more ferocious and intelligent. They were hungry and only knew how to attack. The brown-haired giant led the charge against a wolf, the sound of blades and axes clashing violently. He was followed by other warriors who also began to attack. Taeho witnessed the entire war. This is crazy. He stood there dumbfounded. What should I do? His whole body trembled from the weight of the sword. I've never held a real sword. Suddenly, a large shadow enveloped him. A thought flashed through his mind. I died. That's why I'm here. The small Taeho looked up at the monster, about to crush him with a large rock. If I die again, what will happen? The monster, full of killing intent, swung the rock down with great force, so fast it created a red streak. Facing life and death, a Valhalla warrior's voice came from behind. Duck, kid. He powerfully landed a devastating punch on the monster's face. The sound was earth-shattering. His fist transformed into a giant form, sending the monster flying back. Taeho ducked down and covered his ears as he was told. After dealing with the enemy, he turned and asked, "Don't you know about epics?" Taeho was still gaping at the punch. The way he looked at Taeho was full of excitement. Taeho stuttered a little, scared. Epics? The fiery warrior's fist was glowing. He laughed loudly and asked, "You don't know about epics?" Taeho could only cover his head in shock. He raised his hand to adjust his glasses and asked back, "Epics?" He happily explained, "You being in Valhalla means you've achieved great things that are widely known throughout your life." Ignoring the chaos happening, he continued explaining, "In this place, achievements are power. The greater your achievements, the stronger you are." Taeho pondered for a long time. "My achievements?" He hesitated and scratched his face. Moments later, his expression turned serious. Taeho realized then, "My life has only been about eating and playing games." Suddenly, an image of a warrior in full battle armor, with a cold expression, riding a beast appeared. After this image appeared, Taeho recognized something. "Wait, that's my character." The beast the warrior was riding was a giant dragon. Both of them had the air of leaders. Taeho felt like he was bursting with power. He realized he possessed the achievements of the immortal warrior Karlstad. After realizing that, strange glowing characters appeared on Taeho's palm, his mouth hung open in shock. "This is..." The warrior pointed at those characters. "So you have an epic too? You can see the glowing characters in front of you, right?" Taeho was more focused than ever. He could clearly see that his eyes started to glow with power. "Yes, I don't know what these characters mean, but I can read them. Feels like they're going through a translation software." Taeho's epic was the Immortal Warrior. The synchronization rate with the Immortal Warrior was 1%. One hand holding the sword, the other adjusting his glasses. It could be seen the Immortal Warrior within him. The warrior looked at this young man with some confusion. Taeho thought, the title of Immortal Warrior belongs to Karlstad. If I can use Karlstad's power, then I'm the strongest in the world, right? This thought made him more confident. The warrior was at a loss for words. Suddenly, he pointed ahead and shouted, "Look in front." Taeho was startled awake. Huh? Something large had gotten close and blocked his way. This monster was even more ferocious than the previous one. It roared, preparing to swing its hammer at Taeho, who looked like a weak ant compared to this monster. It swung down, shattering the stone ground, countless fragments of rock flying everywhere. Taeho was thrown back too, the sword spinning in the air. He tumbled across the ground, crying out in pain. Finally, he used his feet to grip the ground to stop tumbling. Taeho was quite exhausted. He was panting while thinking of a way to deal with that monster. How can Karlstad's power be so weak? People and monsters were fighting far away. No one paid attention to him. The monster had just unleashed a powerful blow but didn't seem tired. It raised its hammer again. Taeho still didn't understand. Karlstad should have defeated the enemy easily, right? He made the characters appear again, carefully examining them. Is there something wrong with the epic? Still the same characters, epic of the Immortal Warrior. Synchronization rate with the Immortal Warrior is 1%. Taeho squinted, trying to look closely again. A tiny line below read, synchronization rate with Karlstad 1%. Unable to read it, he wanted to shout in frustration. Is this some kind of insurance policy or what? Make it bigger. The warrior behind him chuckled. You're funny. He turned to leave. Before going, he didn't forget to advise him one last time. Epics don't end here. Keep building your own story. Only when he had completely turned his back, he said, I am Bjorn, stay alive. We will meet again. Leaving Taeho standing there tense. At this moment, Taeho had to be very careful and alert. He cautiously looked up. Facing a monster several times his size, that was also ferocious and hard to deal with, 1% of Karlstad's power. Suddenly, he noticed his sword that had been flung away was stuck into the ground behind the monster. Taeho gritted his teeth. Using every ounce of strength he had to sprint forward, just 1% was enough. He didn't care about the massive thing in front of him. His eyes were only focused on the sword embedded in the ground. To Taeho, Karlstad was a superhuman who could single-handedly fight hundreds of enemies with just his sword. That was his motivation to get the sword, even if it meant sliding a long distance afterwards. Taeho quickly returned to an attack stance. The monster didn't hesitate either. He told himself he had to think. The monster roared and charged, swinging its hammer. In Taeho's mind, the legendary image of himself with Karlstad flashed. He strained to dodge its attack, his face a mask of tension. The monster kept attacking Taeho, the ground shattering under the force of its blows, making it impossible to see. Taeho's speed had increased. He took advantage of its momentary distraction to circle behind it. By the time the dust settled, it finally noticed him. He remembered the cheers of the crowd when he was still in the tournament, and the immortal warrior, Karlstad, who had stood by his side. One technique the warrior used was to run like the wind, slicing through countless enemies. The commentator at the time had said it was a storm. He was sweeping away the enemies like a storm. That was Lee Taeho's Karlstad card. This phrase echoed in his mind, causing his strength to explode. Taeho used that technique to slash at the monster in an instant. It was an epic, the warrior's attack like a storm. It was his first time using such speed, so he couldn't control himself for a moment. Once again, Taeho tumbled several times on the ground. This time, it wasn't because of the monster, because he was able to use his own power. Even so, the fall was painful. Just as Taeho's butt hit the ground, the monster behind him collapsed. He still sat there in shock. Was this a new epic that had been added by remembering his past achievements? This ability was a speed buff, wasn't it? After a while, Taeho stood up again, holding his sword. Facing a horde of monsters before him, his determination was formed from that moment. With the power of an epic, he would definitely survive. That night at the old, dilapidated castle, the lights from inside shone through the glass windows. The clinking of glasses caused wine droplets to splatter. Cheers echoed endlessly. Among the warriors were two guys, one with brown hair and the other bald. The two of them looked at each other and grinned. So, you survived too? That was just a warm-up for me. The two kept up their usual banter. Taeho sat opposite them, trying to bite into a piece of thigh meat that was as tough as a leech. One hand held the meat, the other held a huge mug of beer. He chewed the meat while assessing the situation. Was this a night party? They were only serving meat and alcohol. He was hungry, so he had to eat, but suddenly Bjorn appeared, startling Taeho. He sat down so hard that the whole table of food jumped. He had heard what Taeho said earlier, if you want to eat better food, then level up, warrior. Bjorn also picked up a piece of meat, eating as he spoke. This is the banquet hall for rookies and lower-ranking warriors, so the food and drinks here are very basic. Taeho was curious, so he blurted out, Bjorn, are you also a lower-ranking warrior? Hearing that, he laughed non-stop. I only came here to see how you were doing. Taeho seriously thanked him for what happened earlier. I understand now. I survived thanks to you. I'm truly grateful. If you had told me about epics, then... Suddenly, Taeho thought of something that struck him like a bolt of lightning. He asked Bjorn, who was laughing opposite him, oh, by the way, if I die here, what happens? He explained, if a soul dies here, they turn into Iron Warriors. Iron Warriors are a legion. They no longer feel pain or hunger, and they can fight forever. Isn't that awesome? Hearing this, Taeho was left speechless, his eyes wide and mouth agape. To him, it wasn't Iron Warriors, it was iron coffins. No way am I dying here, never. While he was still in shock, his soul almost leaving his body, Bjorn added, your legion assignment will be decided soon. Taeho asked, confused, legion, what's that? He immediately turned his gaze elsewhere and pointed in that direction. Looks like it's starting. A pair of slender legs wearing golden armor entered the hall. This person immediately stood on the high platform and shouted, warriors, I have seen your performances today. All eyes turned towards the person. Everything else stopped. The woman, adorned in elegant golden armor, pointed ahead. Now I will announce the legions you will be joining. Taeho uttered the word Valkyria. In Norse mythology, Valkyries were minor goddesses serving the supreme god Odin, with Brynhildr as their leader. Bjorn next to him looked excited. Raijin Leifi, Odin's daughter, she's of noble lineage. Raijin Leifi drew her sword and raised it high. Look into your cups. You will see the name of the one you will swear your allegiance to. Bjorn turned to Taeho and explained, we will be assigned to one of the legions of the Asgardian gods. You will receive more power from that god. Taeho thought, I only know Odin and Thor from Norse mythology. Taeho looked into his glowing cup, feeling extremely tense, waiting. I want to receive power from the strongest god possible. Please let it be Odin or Thor. On the tranquil river, Hida and Taeho sat on a small boat, drifting with the current. The surrounding space was deathly silent, with only the sound of flowing water. He looked at Hida, silent before him, and was doubtful. Didn't that guy say they were legions of gods? But why? The confusion in his mind made him tired. He hugged his head. Thousands of unanswered questions made him fall back powerlessly. Hida, seeing his current actions, couldn't help but sigh. He had been like this for a while now. Hearing Hida sigh, he said painfully, only me? Seeing his condition getting worse, Hida spoke up, don't worry, our legion is just as powerful as any other legion. Hearing this, Taeho raised his head in surprise. What is it? She smiled wryly, winking as she tried to be tactful in her explanation. No one looks up to us, and no one below cares about us. Taeho was startled by this and immediately sat upright. It seemed like he would be a bit down after hearing this, but on the contrary, he became more excited but still slightly disbelieving. Isn't he this heaven? Haha, really only me, the Iden Legion? At that moment, he suddenly remembered the party before. He remembered the barley smoothie in his hand, then, suddenly radiating a burst of light, a faint badge with the word Iden appeared in front of his eyes. At this time, the space around him was very noisy and bustling with cheers. Oh, there, oh, Auden, kakaka, to mom, your son made it, whoa, awesome. Despite the noisy and bustling space around him, standing before a strange name, Taeho couldn't help but be surprised. Idun, a name I've never heard before. He carefully raised his head, glancing at the person before him. Bjorn sensed his gaze, he sighed, smiled faintly, and said, be optimistic. Bjorn's nonchalant attitude made Taeho confused. What's with that nonchalant expression? Does it mean I'm done for? Suddenly at this moment, a loud call from a woman echoed from afar, Odin. She carefully waved her hand towards the celebrating soldiers and called out loudly, Odin's legion over here. Following that, the calls of the leaders of different legions echoed one after another, Odin to Tai Freya. After each loud call, the soldiers who had been celebrating instantly grouped together, lining up neatly according to their legion. The different legions' calls quickly attracted Taeho's attention, but no matter how long he waited, he couldn't hear the name Idun. So he started walking around. Glancing around, he tried to find the name Idun, feeling worried and anxious inside. Idun. After a while, he finally heard the familiar name whispered softly, Idun. Taeho immediately noticed the person who just made the call. Before him was Hida, sitting on the ground, looking extremely bored, calling out loudly and then sighing, Idun ha. Just as Hida was about to give up, she suddenly heard the sound of footsteps, catching her attention. She warily opened her eyes and saw Taeho approaching. He looked at her, smiling wryly and scratching his head. Oh, sorry. His voice made her quickly regain her composure. Looking at her bored, drained face, he stammered, I'm in the Idun Legion. As soon as these words left his mouth, Hida's eyes lit up with excitement. She quickly regained her energy and excitedly rushed forward, grabbing his shoulders and exclaimed, Rookie, wow, is it real? Her sudden action startled him, making him bewildered. Not caring about his slightly unnatural expression, Hida was more overjoyed, seemingly unable to believe her eyes. Whoa, after so many years, we have a new member who is this young. Her compliments caused his face to turn red. Seeing her body getting closer, because of excitement, made him so embarrassed he didn't dare breathe. Too close. Hida, noticing, cheerfully introduced herself. It's so nice to meet you. My name is... Returning to reality, he looked at the girl rowing the boat in front of him and softly called out, Hida. She heard his call and looked up in surprise. He asked gently, what are we fighting for here and why? After saying that, Taeho looked at Hida's expression with some tension. Hearing his question, she couldn't help but chuckle. All right, I'll tell you. After saying that, she immediately gathered a surge of power, radiating a faint blue light in her hand, and said solemnly, This is what the world looks like. Then she pointed to a badge. This is Asgard, where we are now. Next to it is Muspelheim, the realm of giants, demons, and devils. Looking at the map in front of him, he couldn't help but excitedly point to a red dot on the map and ask, what about this red dot? Hida looked at the red dot and replied, that place is called Eren, but it's been destroyed. And now, we are the front line. We are fighting against the enemy who wants to destroy the world. Hearing this, he stuttered in surprise. Is it Ragnarok? I think I've seen that in a game. Hearing his words, Hida was startled. She looked at that area sternly. Finally, she said solemnly, confirming it. That's right, we are in the battle of Ragnarok, which holds the fate of the whole world. To exaggerate, we are fighting to protect the world. But frankly, we are fighting to survive. Hida's words made Taeho doubtful, thinking, is it possible to travel between worlds? Just thinking that, another thought flashed in his head, making him jump in surprise. Does that mean I can also return to the world where I live? As soon as he thought of this, the small boat stopped in front of a large cave. The surrounding sky had also turned dark. Hida said gravely, startling him and making him look around, we're here. Taeho, a little distracted, followed Hida out of the small boat and went inside. She said gravely, introducing the place, this is the goddess S temple. Now you are the goddess warrior, remember to enter with respect. He silently followed her deeper into the temple. Looking at the grand scenery around him, he was puzzled but also a bit excited as he looked around. Gazing at the vast space in front of him, he innocently asked, will I get to meet the goddess here? Hearing this, she couldn't help but laugh, but still explained quickly, no, not directly, but from afar. As soon as she said this, she brought him to the main hall. In the center was a statue of a goddess with 4 large pairs of angel wings spread wide. She smiled at the statue, then turned to him. The goddess resides on high. Saying that, she walked quickly him, smiling, and handed a golden apple. Stand on the altar and drop it down. He took the golden apple in his hand, surprised. A golden apple. Taeho took the golden apple in his hand and approached the statue, thinking suspiciously as he stood in the center of the hall, will it work? With suspicion in his heart, he carefully dropped the golden apple on the ground. Instantly, the circle on the ground radiated a dazzling light. A blinding light suddenly appeared before his eyes, startling him and making him quickly cover his face with his hand. Whoa! The lifeless stone statue before him suddenly transformed into a beautiful woman, a goddess radiating powerful authority, surrounded by a blinding aura. The goddess Idun of youth and eternity appeared before him, gently reaching out her hand, smiling faintly and saying, "Taeho, my warrior, come closer." The appearance of the goddess Idun made him surprised. His eyes widened in shock. In his eyes, the space around him seemed to have changed a lot. In an undefined space, the goddess Idun gently approached him. Behind her was a large tree. Seeing the appearance of the goddess Idun, he was shocked and terrified, his whole body involuntarily trembling. He was speechless, and in his mind he thought in shock, "The goddess," but then he quickly regained his composure. Immediately calming down with difficulty, he knelt down, bowing his head respectfully. The goddess Idun gently looked at him from above. Behind her a pure holy stream poured down. Like water flowing from above, his body naturally became more formal. She gently reached out her hand and placed it on his head. A warm surge of power radiated golden light, instantly flowing through his body. Idun said gently, "I will bless you. It will protect your body from death." Hearing this, he was surprised. The guardian, a life spell. Feeling a large amount of unfamiliar power flowing in his body, he looked at his hand with joy. Woo, this power. His whole body was immersed in holy power, making his body more and more toned. Finally, he couldn't help but stretch out, his eyes glowing brightly, radiating holy power, healthy, full of vitality. Feeling the powerful changes in his body, Taeho couldn't help but shout excitedly, "The chronic diseases I suffered from in my life as a professional gamer, including back pain, carpal tunnel syndrome, turtleneck, indigestion, and other symptoms, have completely disappeared." Seeing that Taeho's body had been completely restored, the goddess Idun smiled contentedly, full of expectations, and said, "I look forward to your future achievements." Her words kept echoing in his ears. After a while, he opened his eyes, waking up from his trance. He was met with Hida's excited face. She happily said, "You've received the blessing. Idun is the goddess of youth and eternity. Now, you can even endure pain on the battlefield until death. The chance of you actually dying is very low, because you now have the blessing of life." Despite her serious warnings, he was still mesmerized by Hida's stunning beauty. He kept staring at her, his face gradually turning red without him realizing. "She's so beautiful." Hida, not paying attention to his unusual expression, continued excitedly, "As you grow, the blessing will also grow stronger." Taeho quickly regained his composure, immediately sitting up and looking at her. Seeing his gaze, Hida smiled awkwardly and said, "How our legion's nickname is the Zombie Legion." Hearing this, he suddenly fell silent. After accepting the current situation for a moment, he raised his head, looking at Hida seriously, and said, "After I defeat all the enemies, will I be able to return to where I live?" As soon as he finished speaking, he stared intently at her. But in his heart at that moment, he was extremely smug. "Do I look cool? She must be falling head over heels for me after hearing that." Hida, after hearing his question, couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Does he think he can actually do that? He is so cute." Thinking this, she leaned forward and reached out her hand towards him, smiling gently. "If the war ends as you said, then of course we'll win. If you want to go back, then just do it." Hearing this, he looked at her outstretched hand in a bit of confusion. He straightened his face and reached out his hand, full of determination. "Of course I have to go back. What's fun about a crazy place like this?" As soon as this thought ended, his hand touched Hida's warm hand. She grasped his hand firmly and pulled him up. The warmth of Hida's hand spread throughout his body, making his face turn red. Feeling the temperature of her hand and its softness made his breathing quicken, and his heart blossom with joy. Oh my God, her hands are so warm and soft. In an instant, he was pulled up by her. Seeing his tense body, she was a little confused and moved closer to observe him. Hida's getting closer made him even more afraid to breathe. His mind was in chaos. Things are getting interesting now. Standing in front of the electronic lock, Taeho familiar pressed the password. The electronic beeps from the outside echoed, catching Hida's attention inside the hall. The door quickly opened, and he walked in from the outside, wearing a formal suit. As soon as she saw him return, Hida happily ran out of the kitchen. "Welcome home. That was a long day, wasn't it? You reached just in time." He quickly took off his shoes and entered the hall. After a while, at the dining table, Hida scooped a juicy piece of meat and brought it to his mouth, gently saying, "Here, say la." Taeho sat at the table, looking at the meat in Hida's spoon, his eyes sparkling and his face turning red with desire. His face full of excitement, he leaned forward, opening his mouth wide, ready to enjoy the delicious meat before him. The delicious piece of meat had barely entered his mouth when a tough and hard sensation quickly snapped him out of his dream. He quickly let go of the big piece of meat in front of him. Looking at the meat marked with his teeth, still unbroken, he painfully held his face, unwilling to accept it. "This super tough meat ruined my fantasy." Ida, seeing his bad expression, worriedly asked, "Are you okay, Taeho?" Seeing his expression getting worse as he looked at the meat, she seemed to realize something and smiled wryly, asking, "Is the meat tough? Let's work hard and level up together." Then, she gently comforted him, "If we level up, we'll receive more benefits, better food, and more comfortable living quarters." She then smiled excitedly, encouraging him, "So let's do our best, Taeho." Her words conjured an image in his head of a happy family walking along the Han River. The imaginary scene made his face blush, and he tried to regain his spirits, his whole body trembling as he clenched his fists. His current state made the system helpless. Taeho's delusion had reached its peak. On a peaceful morning, Hida's serious voice echoed. All right, listen carefully. Every time you defeat an enemy, you will receive something called an imprint. As soon as he heard this, he thought back to some events in the past, then asked, thinking about it, that time, I felt red energy filling my body. Hearing this, Hida confirmed with him, answering solemnly, yes, maybe you have a few imprints already. Hearing this, he quickly used his magic to open his inventory. Glancing at each imprint inside, he solemnly asked, and these imprints can be used to enhance the skills I want, right? Hida immediately confirmed, yes, that's right. Looking at each attribute in front of him, Taeho asked, strength, agility, stamina are easy to understand, but what are magic and spirit? She immediately explained the questions in his heart. Magic enhances attacks and also increases defense. Spirit helps you focus more and keep your will strong. Her explanation made him somewhat understand. Okay, I understand. But then he stroked his chin, solemnly asking another question, but can epics be enhanced with magic? Hearing this question, Hida seriously answered solemnly, epics are quite special. They do not become stronger through stats. The more people know about your stories and have strong faith, the more powerful it will become. Sometimes epics can be much stronger than reality, like the story of catching a giant snake becoming the story of killing a dragon. The epics of lower-ranking warriors are quite simple, usually just increasing strength or speed. She then waved her hand, focusing a dazzling, bright power, and smiled as she continued, of course, that's quite impressive too, but it's clearly not like a true epic. An epic is the embodiment of a legend, so its power is very diverse. You can create weapons, transform, or even summon an army. Seeing the scene Hida created before him, he couldn't help but gasp, unable to say a word. She skillfully created a fire bow, pointing it towards Taeho and smiling as she reminded him, but remember this, use the power of your epic and make it stronger. It's all up to you. Hearing this, Taeho jumped in shock, his forehead dripping with cold sweat as he pondered over her words. My story. A powerful image flashed in his mind at that moment, the legendary dragon knight Karlstad. As soon as he thought this, a loud sound reached the two of them, startling them both and making them turn their heads in unison. On a high platform, a tall figure frantically rang a bell, creating a shrill sound. The sound of the bell echoed everywhere, like a desperate cry for help, as well as a warning signal. Hida immediately turned serious, looking at him and said, You understand, right, we've received our deployment orders. Hearing this, Taeho was startled and surprised already. As soon as he finished speaking, a spatial rift emitting a purple light suddenly appeared in front of them, along with a strong gust of wind that made both of them stagger. Seeing the gate in front of him, he couldn't help but be surprised. A gate Hida next to him pointed at the gate, excitedly saying, Go through that purple gate. You will reach the military zone. Once everyone has gathered, we will advance to the battlefield. In a moment, he was wearing the full attire of a true warrior, with a shield and long sword on his back. In front of him, Hida's meticulous hand adjusted his armor. She didn't dare breathe loudly. She said gently, All right, ready. Looking at his current appearance, she was very satisfied, saying, Perfect, it suits you so well. After dressing, his face flushed with embarrassment. He quickly moved towards the gate. I'm going then. Just as he was about to step through the gate, Hida called out, Taeho. Hearing her call, he stopped, turning his head shyly. Hida smiled gently, saying, Don't die out there. Hearing her gentle words, his face gradually heated up, and in his heart, he carried an indescribable determination. Gazing at her beautiful face for a long time, he smiled, his face resolute as he said gently, Did you say I'm hard to kill, thanks to Aiden's blessing? Hearing this, she couldn't help but chuckle, finally feeling a bit more at ease. Seeing her relieved expression, he finally mustered the courage and stepped into the gate before him. As soon as he stepped through the gate, he was surprised by the current scene. Around him, he was now surrounded by a group of soldiers. The surrounding scene was extremely noisy and bustling. The scene was different from what he imagined, and he couldn't help but be surprised. There are so many. Is there going to be a big battle or something? While he was still in shock from the grand sight before him, a large hand suddenly patted his back, making him jump. A familiar voice rang in his ear, Taeho. Hearing this voice, he turned his head, confused. He immediately met with Bjorn. Seeing him, he couldn't help but be surprised. Bjorn? He, seeing Taeho, was also happy we meet again. Seeing his expression, he seemed to realize something, chuckling, You look more energetic now. Is your Valkyrie a beauty? His words hit the nail on the head, making him blush, unsure of what to say. Seeing his embarrassed expression, he couldn't help but laugh loudly, patting his shoulder hard, and saying, Valkyries are all beautiful. Aren't they okay? Go find your legion. Unlike yesterday's battle, today there will be a commander. Bjorn's strong pat made him stagger, unable to stand straight. Just as he lined up, a cold face full of murderous intent stared at him. He said coldly, You belong to the Iden Legion, don't you? Without waiting for him to answer, he fiercely pointed to the end of the line, standing alone like a sore thumb. Go back to the line. Hearing this, he scratched his head awkwardly and went back to his line. Yes. At this moment, he regained his seriousness, looking at everyone and speaking loudly. Let's start with introductions. I am Ragnall of the Heimdall Legion. In this battle, I will be your leader. We will reclaim the territory that Null has invaded. We will be sent into the middle of the battle, where the fighting is most intense. Teo, standing far away, pushed up his glasses, muttering, I can't see anything. But Ragnall had successfully fired up the fighting spirit of the soldiers. Standing before the gate of life and death, he fiercely raised his sword and said loudly, Advance, Valhalla warriors, for Asgard and the 9 realms. As soon as he finished speaking, groups of soldiers, following their leaders, advanced through the gate. On his side, Ragnall said sternly, glancing at the group of people, and said loudly, I will lead the way. Just follow me. The soldiers, seeing his bravery and skill, couldn't help but cheer and praise him. He is a true commander, a real man is back. Ragnall, Teho, at the back of the group, looked at them excitedly, feeling helpless. Ugh, I can't see anything. In an instant, the group of people advanced onto the battlefield. Surrounded by thousands of ferocious and skillful beasts, none of the soldiers yielded. They held their weapons and charged forward, swinging their attacks. Seeing the group gradually weakening, a group of reinforcements were immediately dispatched. As soon as they set foot on the battlefield, they raised their guards and rushed over. Reinforcements have arrived. Come on, let's help them. But as they rushed forward, a shrill sound came from afar, making them stop and look surprised. Huh! On top of a mountain, a tall figure held a giant hammer. The people below looked up, confused at the figure. What's wrong with that guy? Before they could understand what was happening, the tall figure suddenly jumped down. His powerful blow quickly sent the group of people flying away. The person before them was none other than the White Wolf, Bet. He gnashed his teeth in anger, his eyes red like fresh blood as he looked at the group of people. As soon as the group saw the White Wolf, they exclaimed in shock, Whoa, crazy, is that their leader? Seeing the tall figure of the White Wolf, the group became even more restless, a bit hesitant. He's huge, at least 4 to 5 times bigger than the others, right? Seeing the group being a bit lax, their leader immediately shouted, Hey, are you guys gonna stand there with your mouths agape? In the tense situation, another gate suddenly opened, catching the attention of the White Wolf. From inside the gate, footsteps approached, followed by Ragnall's grave voice, Everyone advance, keep moving. Ragnall's group charged out aggressively from the gate. But as soon as they met the cold gaze of the White Wolf, their fighting spirits suddenly dropped. A shiver ran through their bodies, making them silent, afraid to say a word. The scene before them made them confused. What the hell is that? Before they could grasp the situation, the White Wolf quickly swung his massive hammer at them. At this moment, Teho calmly walked out of the gate. He looked around sullenly. Suddenly, he met the angry face of the White Wolf. As soon as it saw him, it roared loudly. The scene before his eyes stunned him. Speechless, what idiot opened this gate? Li Teho battled the ferocious wolf in a sea of fire. Under its huge shadow, compared to him, he was just like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Stay calm, just see it as a beat fight in a game. His eyes flared with intense determination. Now, he looked up at the huge hammer, suddenly realizing, I only have to focus on that huge hammer. A light tap on the shield, Teho assessed, with this small shield alone, there's no way I can block it. Thinking this, he threw the shield away and faced it alone. If that's the case, then, a spark of resolute light shone in his eyes. I'll use all the ancient runes I have, even though 5 pieces aren't too much. Then he created 5 green ancient runes, using them all on agility, choosing to fight the monster with his bare hands. The heavy hammer was coming straight for him. Teho quickly dodged to the side, barely escaping death. The people standing below were shocked. He dodged it. Although he had managed to dodge, the others were not so lucky. As soon as the hammer hit the ground, they were sent flying into the air. Small like a mouse, Teho nimbly weaved through the enemy's attacks. He looked back at it, feeling that this wasn't enough. He thought of a different strategy. Just dodging won't get me anywhere. How about attacking its legs? In the chaos, Teho shouted, Everyone aim for its legs. They rushed forward to attack, with him directing from behind, block it by attacking its legs. But everyone was thrown back again. He focused on his stance, thinking, let's try another way. The wolf charged with its hammer, its roar echoing everywhere, suffocating the atmosphere. In this critical moment, Teho tried to stay calm. The only thing I can think about right now is, suddenly a blue light enveloped his body. It's here. As if receiving power, he shot into the air before the hammer could smash down. Teho, in the air, had found a good advantage to retaliate. He quickly descended. In that moment, Teho promised himself that he would survive this battlefield at any cost. In this life-or-death situation, he remembered Heda's words, don't die. Teho yearned to meet Heda again, and clearly remembered her advice. In his memory, she had taught him how to use his power, how to unleash the power from his own epic, and make it stronger. Heda smiled confidently, her determined eyes looking at him. She said, it all depends on you. Taeho shouted as if trying to quell the fear inside him. And finally, Taeho, stop brain, stop with the flashbacks, no death flags please. I'm sorry. He jumped down from above, having thoroughly calculated. Epic Pursuit Warrior like a storm has only been used for speed boosts so far. Can I develop it further and go beyond the vertical jump just now at the last minute? Taeho had a bold idea. Then he did a somersault in mid-air, for example, rushing forward at breakneck speed, kicking the air, and leaping even higher. In no time, he was close to the wolf raging below. He immediately sliced it from the top of its head down to its body. On the ground, Taeho lay alone on the cracked earth, his body motionless. The cut landed on its head, a deep one bleeding profusely. It let out a mournful scream. He lay on the ground, covered in blood, close to death. I must have survived thanks to Idun's blessing. Right after, he quickly stood up, turning towards the wolf groaning on the other side. Taeho immediately sprang up. This is my last chance to finish it, right now. He flew towards it. I need a weapon. In an instant, he created a new sword. Like a hunting leopard, he leaped high. Using all his strength, he yelled loudly. Meanwhile, a luxurious woman was sitting under a starry sky. Ravat Jupret picked up a figurine and placed it where she wanted. She said, it seems we've won. The horse figurine was placed at a specific spot on the map. Radakavret smiled triumphantly. Then she turned and bowed to Hugin van Kari Ara, Gret reports to Auden. The raven replied, not me, Hugin is the raven. Radakavret sighed and chuckled softly. It was perched on a bamboo tree, looking at her and asking, so, has anyone caught your eye? It was a casual question with no expectations. No one specific, of course, they are the lowest level warriors anyway. Radakavret gave a knowing smile, there's one among them. The image of Taeho bravely fighting flashed through her mind. I've taken a liking to someone. After defeating the fierce wolf, everyone was overjoyed. We won, victory is ours, glory to Auden. His whole body was covered in fresh blood, mixed with dust. Even his breathing seemed heroic. Suddenly, his eyes widened as he saw something. They were joyful, happy sounds after a brutal battle, the cheers. Taeho remembered before, when he had not entered this world. It feels somewhat familiar. He looked at the weapon in his hand, the rune fang sword. Taeho seemed to know a lot about it. It used to be a super rare weapon in the game, but then it became a common low-level weapon. So this is my position now, huh? His gaze became more determined. Reflecting his ambition, I want to keep hearing these cheers. Then Taeho merged into the sounds of the battle. I want to become even stronger, the war god Taeho. I will become the greatest in Valhalla. A man appeared from somewhere, touching his shoulder and praising him. Well done, Taeho. He was startled and turned around, feeling some regret. Wait, that should have been a spectacular final blow. Bjorn, who had witnessed all his efforts, acknowledged, you've truly become more proficient in using your epic. He was humble, it's all thanks to you, Bjorn, and he did too. He praised Taeho, it's amazing that you can summon a sword from thin air. He showed Bjorn his ability, I was surprised too. It seems like I can create it and dismiss it whenever I want. His eyes shining, his voice full of enthusiasm. Okay, it's time to go, he asked, are we going back now? Bjorn rejected that, he instructed, go back now, our mission is to take back that fortress. Until then, we have to keep watch here. Surprise, he asked, so we're sleeping here. Night fell, the air became colder. All the warriors camped there for the night. In one of the tents, someone shouted loudly. Taeho jumped out of bed, relieved after a tiring day. What a long day, I can't believe it's only been one day. Suddenly he became silent. His eyes became thoughtful. Come to think of it, how much stronger have I become? He held his hands in front of him, then made something appear. Immediately, strange characters appeared on his hand. The system notified, epic stats have been synchronized. Taeho read the notification and felt happy. The synchronization rate has increased, and I have another epic slot. Does this mean I can use 2 epics at once? Suddenly, someone entered the tent and called out, Warrior Taeho. The man laughed loudly, saying, you're something else. Taeho felt suspicious. Why is he smirking like that? They led him to a feast, where the men were eating and looking at him. Taeho felt like something was wrong. What's with these people? Why are they all looking at me like that? Suddenly, his gaze stopped at a certain point. His face flushed red, his eyes wide with surprise. There was a girl there, someone very familiar to him. She turned around, smiling brightly. Taeho. Hida was crying uncontrollably. I'm really sorry. Turned out that 5 minutes ago, she stood in front of Taeho begging, please show me, the achievements you have obtained when you were alive. Hearing that, he wondered, is it okay to show others? Hida replied, if you want to, you can show them. Suddenly, a piece of paper appeared in front of her, causing her to break out in a cold sweat. Immediately, she bowed deeply. Oh my goodness. I didn't know I was standing before such a great person. How rude I've been showing off in front of a master. Wait, I didn't mean to call you a rookie. Seeing her cry like that, he was also very flustered, thinking, she looks so cute when she's flustered. I need to explain it clearly. A moment later, inside the tent, people were still chattering a game. Taeho confirmed, yes, I achieved those things, but it was in a virtual world, it's not real. Hida replied, embarrassed, I kind of understand and kind of don't. Then she said, but you still achieved those things? right? I thought they were impressive. Hearing that, he was stunned. Taeho, holding his head, recalled, as sports, that's considered a sport too. If only I had done what he did, getting exempted from military service just to play games. What the hell, it's really strange to feel comforted after death. Hida continued, anyway, let's talk about epics. The epics you can get are unlimited. She shared her thoughts, but from what I see, with your current level, once you create an epic, you can't create another one for a while, so be careful and avoid accidentally creating something weird. Taeho looked at the system screen in front of him, frowning. Just one, what should I do? Looking at the chart, he pondered, considering my current epics, I need at least one attacking skill. His face was full of struggle, as if he was battling with his own thoughts. Suddenly, he stretched his hand forward, preparing to receive power. What I need now is a long eye that can see everything. Taeho's eyes burned with determination, and Hida was startled behind him. Suddenly she asked, have you decided, Taeho? He took off his glasses and said, yes, my epic will be enhanced vision. Taeho was full of confidence. It's the ability to see through everything like in a game. Simply put, I can see the details of my opponents. He began to fantasize about Hida's naked body and thought, I can see everything about them, everything. As soon as he finished speaking, his face was steaming. Seeing this, Hida worriedly asked, Taeho, what's wrong? A moment later, Taeho's head was bandaged. Hida forced a smile and said, are you okay? You scared me. It looked like your head was about to explode. It's time for me to go back now. His face pale, he replied, it's okay, I just almost died. Before leaving, she didn't forget to say, anyway, I think you're amazing. You'll definitely become very strong in the future. After saying that, she hugged him tightly. With this good luck charm, joined the Idon Legion. Suddenly hugged by a beautiful woman, Taeho's face flushed red and he broke out in a sweat. Right after, a loud explosion came from inside the tent. After Hida left, a man's figure was slowly approaching Taeho's tent. He poked his head in and asked, Warrior Taeho, are you there? Taeho, now wearing head armor, replied, yes. What is it? The man began to introduce himself. My name is Rumfo, I'm from the Ola Legion. He explained, warriors from the Siri unit are joining the Ragnall unit. Everyone has gathered at our unit's base, so I've come to inform you. Taeho's eyes lit up with the same light as before. Let's see. The image of Runenfi's muscular body appeared in his head. So he's really called Runenfi. Wolf Hunter must be a nickname. He's making me want to have a nosebleed. Even though he's a man, turn off the X-ray mode. It's better to turn off this mode, unless it's really necessary. Tonight is a lot quieter. Runenfi led the way, saying, but I'm really jealous. Hearing this, Taeho asked, a Valkyrie visited you? At this, his face flushed red. I'm so jealous. That's so cool. If a Valkyrie visited me, I'd brag about it forever. Taeho thought to himself, it feels like a celebrity came to visit. The perks of the Idon Legion aren't bad either. After thinking this, he asked, but Runenfi, what's the blessing of the Ola Legion? He replied, invisibility and tracking. You have to choose one, but you can unlock both later. Then Runenfi started to demonstrate. I chose invisibility. Taeho was very excited. Woo, he disappeared. Runenfi continued to provide more information. Tracking is actually the ability to follow a target. You can track someone with even just a small clue. After a while, they stopped in front of a group of people. We're here. Seeing him, someone ran over and said, Captain, I've brought Warrior Taeho. Looking at the person, he was surprised. A woman. Immediately in front of him was a beautiful woman with a powerful aura. Taeho thought to himself, this is the first time I've seen a woman in Valhalla who isn't a Valkyrie. After saying this, he introduced himself to her. The woman slowly stood up and said, you're the warrior who defeated the giant knoll today, right? It's nice to meet you, Warrior Taeho. Suddenly, as if seeing something, his eyes widened, and he broke out in a cold sweat. He had imagined a fierce wolf behind her. What is this oppressive feeling? She feels more powerful than the other warriors here. Then Siri said, the commander will be here soon, wait a bit. Seeing her cold demeanor, he sweated. She has such a strong charm. Just then, a bright light appeared in the sky. Everyone realized it's a Valkyrie. Immediately, a beautiful girl appeared in the sky. Her face was full of majesty, but also a hint of allure. Taeho thought in awe, amazing, that's Valkyrie Gepret. He kept staring at her, wondering, but what's with that nickname? Is it a nickname given by the warriors? Then the girl introduced herself, I am Ruvavavrat of the Idon Legion, and I am the commander of this battle. As you know, Ragnall has fallen in battle, so the Ragnall unit will merge with Siri's unit. Then she did not forget to remind them, take good care of things, Siri. Siri responded with seriousness, understood. Then Roger Brett conjured up a piece of paper. She announced, I have reviewed your achievements, and I will reward those who have made the greatest contributions. As if she knew the results, one of them was Taeho. Rudat Gepret read out his achievements. You single-handedly defeated the giant knoll, the knoll leader. You will receive a reward of a bag of gold and an insignia, along with 10 points for your legion. Hearing this, Taeho reminded himself, don't smile. Oh, I'm kind of famous here too, huh? Upon hearing these words, everyone around recognized him. Isn't that the guy the Valkyrie revisited? People standing in front of him were constantly talking. Really, he's really amazing. He's unbelievably good, I'm so jealous. Seeing this, Taeho thought helplessly, being visited by a Vankarai is more shocking than defeating a beat. Ruta Gebert spoke up, okay, everyone settle down. Starting tomorrow afternoon, we will begin to reclaim the fortress. Her face was full of determination. We will use special tactics, mobile fortresses, and the warriors here will be the ones to carry them out. Everyone immediately responded enthusiastically. Taeho was utterly confused. Mobile fortresses? What the hell are those? Then he turned to ask, hey Runafi, what are mobile fortresses? Runafi was also stumped, I have no idea bro. Changing the scene, a moment later on the battlefield, Ruta Gebert flew in the air with a cold expression. She ordered loudly, advance immediately. The warriors enthusiastically prepared to move forward. Both sides were evenly matched. The crowd was getting more and more crowded. Suddenly, a person was watching everything from afar. There were also giant monsters participating in the battle. The fight began, monsters versus humans. The crowd rushed into battle, a fight that was hard to tell who would win. In a corner, Taeho's group was planning, when we start the ambush, the enemy will focus in front. One unit will attack the fortress and open the gate. Siri seriously said, to open the gate, we need to go to a place called the spell control room. Run Fei asked, puzzled, then we'll enter the fortress with the mobile fortresses. Taeho thought helplessly, he's ignorant but trying to act smart. He was also full of questions, but what are mobile fortresses? Are they like teleportation or something? Suddenly his face became blank. Turned out that what everyone was sitting on right now was the mobile fortress. Runafi noticed his strange expression. Taeho, you're not interested, he forced a reply, not at all. The others were very excited. Valhalla, here we come. At the bottom, a tall man blew a horn, signaling, prepare to launch. As the mobile fortress rose, Taeho broke out in a cold sweat. He gritted his teeth, his face turning pale. A cannon was already set up far away. Immediately after, it fired at an incredible speed. The mobile fortress began to spin at a crazy speed. Taeho's head was spinning, his eyes turning white. Some people were screaming like crazy. Others were excited and thrilled. Even now, the crowd was still fighting. Then many wooden barrels were thrown. Many barrels were thrown inside, but it didn't do anything. On this side, Taeho's group was also dizzy. My back, I bit my tongue, somehow I'm still alive. Siri was still very energetic, prepare to fight, the enemy is coming. Suddenly, a strange foot appeared. It turned out to be giant killer bugs. Not just one, but hundreds of them were swarming them, so many. It was known that the giant bugs moved in groups of 5. If they hit the leader, the others would become useless. Run and Fee said worriedly, but they look exactly the same. Taeho agreed, it's just going to be luck. Then he gritted his teeth, a blue light appearing in his eyes again. Looking at the giant bugs, he thought, if I use long eye, I'll be able to see them. One has a different name than the others. Suddenly a glimmer of hope appeared. Siri said, I can tell them apart, while Taeho said, I have an epic. Without hesitation, Siri charged straight ahead. Taeho was dragged along with her. He was blushing on her shoulder, while she was rushing, barely paying attention, point out the leader. Everyone, focus on the one I'm attacking. Taeho looked seriously, oh, I see it. His attention went to a nimble giant bug. Then he switched to the killer giant bug. Next he pointed at the insider giant bug. Receiving the information, everyone immediately attacked. Taeho was very focused on his task. The leader bugs were constantly being defeated by the warriors. A moment later, the leader bug finally fell. The other bugs, seeing this, were stunned. They began to turn away. The whole group simultaneously turned tail and ran. Immediately a man blew a horn. The monster soldiers all ran away. Amidst the chaos ahead, Siri suddenly turned back and said, damn it, they're swarming again. Run and split the team. Let us handle them. Get to the control room quickly. Run if you immediately obey, understood. Siri added, and bring warrior Taeho along. She firmly said, I am making him your right-hand man, done warrior. Seeing that trust made Taeho even more confident. Soon after, the 4 brothers who had been strangers formed a separate unit, everyone out of here. Suddenly, someone grabbed Taeho's shoulder. It was He seemed to want to protect him. Stick close to me, warrior of Iden. Immediately after, the unit went into stealth mode. They easily passed through the group of monsters. At this time, they were all filled with a thirst for battle. As they walked, the 3 young men talked, I've memorized the map here by heart. Placing his hand on a wall, he realized there's a secret door here. Immediately after, a door leading underground opened in front of them. The 3 young men immediately went inside. This is the connection to the control room, an emergency exit. The space inside was very dark. They walked blindly, not knowing how long it would take them to reach their destination. Taeho was leading the way, but in his absent-mindedness, he bumped his head into a spider web. He thought dejectedly, why are there so many spider webs? Then Taeho became serious. It seems like this place hasn't been used in a long time. Then they continued to move forward. While walking, they didn't know that something was watching them from behind. At this moment, a giant spider appeared, heading towards the 3 young men. After a while, Renf also sensed something. Everyone, watch your step. The bald member was also very tense, no less than the other 2. The spider, as if it knew it had been discovered, no longer hesitated, growling a few times. It moved to right above their heads. Everyone immediately realized, a wolf spider, it's so big. Not only that, but the spider was also secreting a sticky substance. Renfi gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it, it seems like it's hungry, it's going to tear him apart. I really want to save him so bad." Taeho shouted, "Renfi, there are too many of them." At this moment, it wasn't just one, but hundreds of them. Taeho started using the fire in his eyes. "Calm down. Taeho, what are their weaknesses?" All the information immediately appeared. Their characteristic is a paralyzing substance. Their weakness is fire. Knowing what to do, Taeho gritted his teeth, his face full of determination. He used Warrior Epic Blade. Seeing the sword appear in his hand shocked Renfi. Without saying anything more, Taeho threw the sword straight towards the spiders. Taeho looked in that direction, thinking, "Rune Fang, activate effect." The sword changed from blue to the yellow color of fire. Immediately it burst into flames. Taeho quickly ran. "Go quickly." The whole group ran, leaving the fire behind. "Taeho, are you a mage? And what about the sword? I'm much better than that." Then, the three of them dragged each other from one place to another. After a while, they reached the final path. "That door over there, we just need to go through that door." Renfi and Taeho frantically ran ahead. "Hurry up, go in." The remaining bald young man followed, panting, "Hurry up and close the door." Just as they were about to close the door, a spider from behind also ran in with them. All three of them saw that it was also covered in goo. After assessing the situation, they closed the door, while Taeho eliminated the spider that had just entered. Renfi and the bald guy kept struggling to close the door. Taeho at this time sat down on the ground, panting. The two other young men were also just as exhausted. Suddenly, Taeho noticed something. He wondered, is this the control room? They immediately approached. Renfi said, "Yes, more precisely, this is the emergency control room, the second control room hidden in the fortress." Taeho was also surprised by this. That's why the road here was so difficult. It's a hidden place, so there are no guards. Renfi took out something. "Never mind, hurry up." He placed a badge on the control panel. "We need to quickly open the fortress gates to minimize our troops' casualties." Immediately a bright light appeared. "Emergency authentication lock has been verified." Suddenly another person appeared on the screen. The person introduced themselves. "Welcome, I am the Black Fortress. Please give your command." Renfi and the bald young man, seeing the beautiful girl, turned red, while Taeho, beside them, thought helplessly. He said it was an emergency. Then, returning to his serious demeanor, Renfi ordered, "Open the gates." Suddenly, the gates that were blocking the spiders outside opened. They yelled, "Not that gate, open the fortress cannons." Renfi at this moment was fuming. Standing in front of the corpses of the spiders, they kept panting, "Mission completed. We just need to defend this place until our allies occupy the fortress." Renfi seemed like he was not tired at all. He even intended to flirt. "We have free time, so let's talk about women." Before he could finish, the fortress spoke. "Someone is approaching the control room." As soon as the words finished, a goblin crashed through the door and entered. Taeho and Renfi were horrified. That thick steel door, and there are a bunch of spiders outside. The spiders swarmed in. Standing before them was a giant goblin. Everyone immediately recognized that it was the red-eyed bait. It started roaring, "Valhallas bugs, I will tear you apart." All three of them were now in terror. Taeho gritted his teeth and took a defensive stance. The whole group, without thinking anymore, immediately charged forward. The goblin was not weak at all. Its power shook the heavens and the earth, and its eyes were full of murderous intent. It gnashed its teeth, looking at them as if it had a long-standing feud. The bald young man was struggling to endure. Streams of power began to collide, creating a fierce wind. In an instant, the bald guy was sent flying into the wall by the goblin. Suddenly, it thought, "Where's that little guy?" Turns out the one it was looking for was Taeho, who out of nowhere was right above it, flying straight towards it. Immediately, a terrifying stream of power emanated from him. As if it had identified its target, it stood still for a moment. Then, it summoned a staff in front of it. At the same time, Taeho also rushed over from afar. Suddenly, as if he saw something, he was horrified, his eyes wide. Red Eye had easily captured Taeho's body. It pulled him up and jumped high. Then, it used its ultimate move, Tombstone Piledriver, slamming Taeho into the ground. Renfi, standing outside, was very worried. Taeho's face also became lifeless. With a loud crash, rocks and dust flew everywhere, and Renfi shouted anxiously, "Tae!" In front of them, the monster was standing unfazed by Taeho's attack, while he was punched and lay motionless on the ground. The ground around him was cracked and sunken. Renfi shouted in worry, "Tihu!" Taeho didn't seem okay, his body was not moving. He painfully opened his eyes and vomited blood. Suddenly he felt a comfortable sensation in his body, not as painful as he appeared. "What is this? The feeling is so warm and comfortable." His blue eyes slowly opened. The dazzling light in front of him gave Taeho a familiar feeling. He thought he was dead, so this is what death feels like. In that moment, he suddenly noticed a fist coming straight at his face. Taeho sighed, "It seems the battle isn't over yet, but this time I'm really dead for sure." However, right then, Renfi raised his bow with a flaming arrow. He aimed at the red-eyed monster and fired. The arrow hit the monster, flames engulfing it. Taking advantage of the monster's struggle in the flames, Renfi shouted at Taeho, "Wake up, Taeho healing squad, prepare to assist." Run F called out with all his might, trying to endure, his face worried about Taeho's condition. The red-eyed monster, injured by the attack, fumed, "You bastard, I'll kill you." But in that moment, its red eyes seemed to flicker with hesitation. The monster paused for a moment, calculating who should I take down first, that annoying guy who is facing me, or... It looked down at Taeho lying on the ground, wondering, should I crush that hyperactive brat first? Taeho observed the monster's behavior and noticed the hesitation. He quickly stuck out his tongue and pretended to be dead. Seeing him motionless, the monster stopped and hesitated, thinking he was already dead. Then it no longer hesitated. Now its only target was Run Fi. It roared, "You'll be the first one to go to the afterlife." Run Fi, holding several arrows in his mouth, also raised his bow, preparing to shoot 3 arrows. Gritting his teeth, he said, "Damn it, come here if you're so tough." At this point, the monster had focused all its attention on Run Fi and didn't notice Taeho slowly getting up behind it. He gritted his teeth, enduring the pain, this excruciating pain. "It feels like I'm dying, but..." Taeho was determined to get back up, gathering all his strength and yelling, "I'm not dead yet." He kicked off the ground, launching himself like a bullet, with incredible force towards the monster. Quick as lightning, he pierced right through it. Run Fi watched the scene in shock and backed away. A whooshing sound echoed, and a vital part of the monster flew out. The red-eyed monster cried out. Having lost a vital part of its body, it trembled, frustrated to the point of tears. It wailed in anguish, the screeching sound making everyone's head spin. Run Fi couldn't stand the smell coming from the monster, and covered his nose. The man fighting beside him was in a similar situation, unable to endure the horrible smell, his expression shocked beyond words. Run Fi approached Taeho, pointed at the monster, and with the last bit of compassion for it, said to Taeho, "This is kind of, I should probably help ease his pain." "Huh?" Taeho paused for a second before responding, "Huh? Oh, yeah." The monster painfully hugged itself and cried. Taeho gathered his energy and added, "We're all guys here, I'm so sorry." Streams of green energy converged into a dazzling circle on his hand. Taeho wondered what he was going to create this time. He looked up. "What is this?" A huge heavy barbel appeared on his hand. Everyone was shocked. "Skill buster." Taeho shouted, focusing all his strength into his 2 hands. He smashed the hundreds of tons of weight onto the monster's head. The barbel crushed its head, and the ground around it cracked from the force. Rune exclaimed, "For..." The tall man continued, "Iden." Seeing the scene in front of them, Taeho had completely defeated the monster. The 2 men happily jumped for joy, shouting, "For the god Idun, glory to the god Idun." The system screen appeared. Synchronization rate has reached 7%. The siege of the Black Fortress ended with the victory of the Valhalla warriors. Run Fi and the man were so happy they rushed over and hugged Taeho, almost suffocating him. The mission to eliminate the red-eyed bait was complete. Changing the scene to the square, Braichi shouted, "For the glory of the god Thor." The whole army cheered, celebrating the victory. The last general of the mysterious cult was defeated by the warrior named Braichi from the Thor cult. The Raven Hugin flew over, observing the scene below. It thought that Braichi is pretty interesting too. But it seems like there's something more interesting. "Is that a newbie?" Hugin noticed Taeho and his teammates who were celebrating the victory. "That guy is called Taeho. Night fell, the surroundings were dark, but the military camp was brightly lit. Rajin Li Leif raised a jug of wine. "Tonight, let's celebrate, because everyone deserves it." Camaraderie was at an all-time high, and everyone cheered in celebration. The sounds of laughter and cheers filled the air, except for Taeho, who sat alone on the wall above. Taeho looked at the sky with a serious expression. Then a voice spoke, "Are you okay?" He startled and turned. "Oh, it's you. Honestly, I feel I died back there." Run Fi put his hands on his hips. "Well, I'm relieved that you're alive. I was shocked when you fell on the ground." At the same time, a woman's voice interrupted. "Excuse me, but may I say something?" With her blue hair and refined features, Siri admired them. "Today, your team did something amazing. How about having a few drinks with me?" Run Fi, mesmerized by her beauty, excitedly grabbed a wine bowl. "It would be an honor. I've always wanted to drink with you." The teammates below also wanted to drink with Siri and pushed forward. "Captain Siri, me too. Have another drink with me." Run Fi, having lost his chance, complained, "Tesk, you guys." Siri cheerfully raised her jug for Valhalla. The tall soldiers below responded loudly for Captain Siri. Taeho looked at the lively, happy scene in front of him, seeming a little lost in thought. He took a sip of his wine and thought, "I thought they would be cold and unfeeling." Next, the scene was happy. Run Fi recounted the story about the spider with fear. He also told the story of Taeho's brutal act of cutting off the vital part of the monster. Everyone was shocked and laughed loudly. This scene gave him a feeling that was both strange and familiar. Watching Siri and everyone laugh happily, he realized his own feelings, so they're the ones who will make me happy. After Taeho was standing alone, Siri showed up, making him feel less lonely, and then when they raised their glasses together, a group of people came and livened up the atmosphere. Back at the silent Black Fortress outside, there wasn't a single person around. But inside, it was the complete opposite. Suddenly a group of people holding torches appeared. and there was a red-bearded man with a very cheerful, euphoric face, advancing forward while panting. He didn't hesitate to slam his head into his teammate. They immediately jumped at each other, chest bumping, making sweat fly everywhere, and shouted in unison, "The party continues." Loud music started playing, and Ragnall, shirtless, jumped in, raising his arms to celebrate. A homemade DJ also appeared, scratching records and setting a crazy beat. So awesome. This is his world, so he has the right to have a good time. The red-bearded man went to the dance floor, swaying his hips very skillfully, while Ragnall was tossing his hair continuously. There was also a blonde guy like a bodyguard wearing cool black sunglasses and others who were dancing their hearts out. Looking at this chaotic scene, Taeho was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth, his eyes wide as if they were about to fall out. When will this end? Damn it, who are these people? Suddenly, the red-bearded man, looking out of it, laughed mindlessly. He, I'll show you something interesting. The others, seeing this, warned that something bad was about to happen. He's drunk, too dangerous, take him down quickly. So as soon as they thought it, they immediately jumped in to completely deal with the problem that was predicted. If he accidentally showed other people, it would become a total mess. Take him down. And then Regret suddenly appeared in front of them and called out, "Warrior Lee Tae-ho." She appeared with a very alluring appearance, a tight-fitting dress that showed off her body, and a high slit with her hand on her hip like a supermodel, making him a little surprised. Taeho and the three giant bodyguards were all completely confused. Then he said confused at this hour, but she wasn't the one who needed to meet him. Rudit Geprit then revealed a surprise, "You have a guest," and from behind Hida appeared a little shy and said, "Hi, everyone's coming." Oh my god, just her appearance alone caused a bunch of burly men to excitedly rush over to get a closer look while Taeho stood there awkwardly. He could only escape quickly, saying, let's go quickly. Typical men, those guys only cared about looks, their faces flushed red, "That girl is hot, youth is amazing, I'm so jealous, damn it." After seeing them leave, the others also dispersed and stopped gathering there, and said excitedly, "Okay, let's drink the rest." However, Rajaprit caught them red-handed, and she immediately reacted, stopping them, "No way." Then, she pointed, reminding them, "Siri's team has a special mission tomorrow, so go to bed now." At that demand, they had to give in reluctantly. The riot was successfully stopped, and they had a peaceful sleep until morning. The dawn had broken over the fortress, and snowbirds were happily perched on the trees. Unexpectedly, the soldiers had arrived and waited beforehand with only a pair of legs just appearing when they shouted, "He's here, over here, Taeho." But unlike everyone else, he yawned deeply, causing them to ask, "You look so tired." Then it was time for the brothers to discuss things, and they asked Taeho, "You look so happy, a solo night with a Van Kakuri? What did you do, Taeho?" But there was nothing he could do, he just replied helplessly, "Sorry, she told me to keep it a secret." But seeing his face flushed red, no one dared to believe him. They teased, so something happened, but he denied it all. It wasn't like that. Every word he said was carefully scrutinized. There's definitely something going on, Taeho. Then he noticed the strange thing, the new round necklace on his neck. Then a person stepped forward and announced loudly, "Everyone pay attention." It was Siri speaking clearly. "From now on, we have a special mission. The target is..." Looking at the map, she read out the exact name, the dwarf mines located at Glock Fortress. When the gnolls took the fortress, the dwarves barricaded the mines and hid inside, but since then, there has been no news. Because of this unsolved mystery, Siri declared the goal, "We need to go there and check the situation ourselves." In the middle of the tension, he interrupted, cutting off everyone's mood, "Dwarves," causing Runafew to frown, confused, "What about them?" Then his eyes narrowed strangely as he replied, "Dwarves go crazy for beer, it's been a while since we drank." But then he suddenly thought, "But we just drank yesterday." It seems that Runafew's view was a little salty. Dwarves are the real men, even their women have beards, while Taeho had to admire them. "That's not my style." The two were talking privately, causing Siri to remind them, "I haven't finished yet." The two members then fell silent and listened, letting their captain continue. "The journey to the dwarf mines is quite far, so to shorten the travel time as much as possible." Her mouth moved, and she looked very worried with a bit of fear. She seemed to think of something serious, saying, "The means of transport will be the Black Lightning." The name was announced, causing the whole group to be shocked beyond belief, asking for confirmation. "What Black Lightning?" But Runafew seemed quite interested in this, drooling, his mind wandering. Taeho looked at him with a judging gaze. "I don't know either." Turning back to Hida, after being led into her private room, as soon as she leaned on the bed, she carefully instructed, "What we talk about here must be kept secret." As soon as she finished speaking, she immediately took off something around her neck and said, "I have something I want to give you," much to the shyness, blushing, and heart palpitations of Taeho. With quick movements in just a few minutes, a necklace was presented before him with the name, Golden Apple Necklace. Hida's purpose in giving it to him was, wearing this will help speed up the healing process. Then she presented another bag, and this too. With the finished product, she also gave him a small bag. When opened, Hida said, "Some fragments of the golden apple. It is very effective for healing wounds. detoxification, removing curses, and enhancing appearance. And finally, what will be the item for our Tae-ho? Unbelievably, she suddenly moved close to him, put her hand on his forehead, gently placed a kiss, and whispered, "May Iden's blessings be with you," making him lose control and clench his hands. Having only felt it for a few seconds, he was pulled away by the teleportation spell. From inside the room, with a thud, Tae-ho was now pale, buried in the snow, with the necklace sticking out. On the thick layer of snow were countless coffins, planted straight into the ground, lined up in a long row. A hand emerged powerfully and fiercely, pushing away the cold layer of snow. It was him, trying to free himself from the snow. He had to softly exclaim, "Huff, I'm really still alive." More happily, he didn't forget to evaluate the express delivery service. I didn't think it would be normal, but stuffing a person into a coffin and launching it. At this moment, Tae-ho involuntarily turned his head, his eyes wide, looking around for something. Not just him, a whole group, with half of their heads buried in the snow. Tae-ho could only look on, hoping, "I hope no one died." Feeling different from the crowd, it reminded him of the treasure he had just received. He lifted it up and wondered, is it thanks to this necklace? I'm the only one who is okay. A few moments later, standing before the dwarves' shrine, with a statue of a dwarf holding a large axe, the whole group had gathered. Without them having to push, they seemed to discover something and shouted, "The gate is open. Are they attacking?" With the leadership skills of the head, Siri, with a cold expression, said, "Let's go in." It's true that they couldn't have a moment of peace. They had just stepped inside, and there was already a commotion. "It's too dark in here. Dwarves don't like sunlight. There's a rumor that if they come into direct contact with sunlight, they will turn to stone. They don't suck blood, do they? They're dwarves, not vampires who suck blood." The empty space made people feel scared, but not her. The brave Siri shouted loudly, "Dwarves, we are the warriors of Valhalla. Van Ret has sent us." With his abilities, Tae-ho activated the energy that appeared in his eyes. It seemed that there really were dwarves standing on a corner, watching them. As soon as he saw the difference, he quickly yelled a warning, "Captain Siri, there are too many red names. They are arranged along both sides of the fortress." Tae-ho shouted in panic, "We resurrounded?" Choosing her as the leader was never wrong. Siri, upon receiving the news, immediately and quickly ordered the group, "Shield wall." And then everyone acted on command, the shields grouped together, forming a solid arch. If they had been a few seconds slower, the outcome would have been different. A series of arrows rained down incessantly. They continuously attacked each layer of wooden shield, causing heavy damage. Despite their best efforts, an arrow still pierced straight through the front of the blonde guy. It seemed like the red-bearded man from last night was also hit. He was in so much pain he wanted to cry but tried to remind, "Block properly, it hurts." Hearing that, his brother gritted his teeth, trying hard. "Damn it, I know." There was only one arrow left, falling down fast. Finally, when it hit the ground, it broke in two due to the impact. Inside another shield dome, Siri asked, "Tae-ho, can you identify the enemy at this distance?" Hearing that, he peeked through the gap between the shields and affirmed, "I can't." There were no dwarves with proper flesh. Instead, a strange skeleton head appeared under his limited view. Just looking at it made Tae-ho panic. When he looked closely, he was horrified, worrying so much that he broke out in a sweat and stuttered, "That is," and their appearance was revealed. Their entire bodies were just layers of bones with a bit of skin, but they were still conscious, growling and roaring savagely. It was time for Tae-ho to report dwarves zombies, and before he could finish, Run-Fi interrupted, "Dwarves, why are they attacking us?" And stopping there, already scared and hard of hearing, he added, "Zombies, why are there zombies here?" This forced Tae-ho to clarify, "They read dwarf zombies." Run-Fi was too hasty, causing her to remind him, "Listen all the way first." Looking elsewhere, he was a bit confused, "So it means that they're dead. They have all turned into brutal, bloodthirsty skeletons, ready to tear apart the humans fighting here." The moment they entered the dwarves' hideout, they didn't expect that they had walked into their trap. While hiding in the shield dome, Run-Fi panicked, asking, "Tae-ho, are all of them really zombies?" However, that was the reality. He couldn't lie to himself. "Yeah, it's too dark, so I can't see their faces clearly," but what he noticed first were the very cool positions. Vampire rap gods, choreographers, and singer-songwriters. It made Tae-ho doubt his life. Though the names were different, they were definitely all zombies. "Oh, what is this?" The rap god is already drawing his bow, stretching the arrow ready to do something. Probably thinking that the attack was over, seeing the enemy's expression made Siri worried and yelled, "They're redrawing their arrows. Put up your shields." The situation in front of him seemed different. A finger pierced through a hole in the shield, warning. But Captain, our shields have become like this." He also worriedly warned her, "We can T-block the next attack." Seeing that made Siri exclaim helplessly, "Damn it." Their defensive weapons were shattered. When they looked up, the two sides were filled with a red glow. Seemingly in despair, they could only think, "Is this the end for us?" However, luck was on their side. The sound of someone's footsteps rushed over. It turned out to be Isaac, who appeared like a savior and urgently called everyone to the open gate. True to his word as a weapons master, Isaac lit the fuse of his self-made Molotov cocktail, throwing it straight inside quickly and powerfully, like playing Gunny Mobile. At this time, he shouted a warning, "Close your eyes," so they immediately did as he said. While the bottle popped open, the gasoline stretched out and splattered before immediately bursting into flames, exploding first with a golden light then a white flash, along with screams kai kit kra kra for a long stretch. Having successfully rescued the group from the land of death, the savior, Isaac, quickly led the way, waving his hand and shouting, "This way, let them chase us." After walking for a while, a hole appeared in front of them. He urged everyone hurry jump down, and the first pioneer was Ernf, but as soon as he stepped a few steps he was stuck and he yelled, "Gee, it's too tight, I'm stuck, isn't there another way?" But Isaac still insisted, gritting his teeth, "No, just go." So he had to resort to the final measure. He used force to push him down with his foot, quite painfully, ouch. And so each member did the same, and finally, the last one to slide down the long water pipe was Tae-ho. Just as he jumped into the new area, he was greeted with the sight of a quarry full of gems, and the voice of Siri, "Everyone's down now," not forgetting to notice Ernfi, who was painfully rubbing his shoulder. Then she yelled, "This way," Tae-ho to his surprise, "Oh," because he didn't expect that such a decrepit mansion would have a place that was breathtakingly beautiful, with each blue and purple crystal sparkling as he slowly walked into the hidden palace. Having entered the inside, the group gathered together, listening warmly as the old man told them this was caused by a vampire. When he reached this part, Isaac's face was quite sad. It suddenly appeared early yesterday morning and caused all this chaos in just one day. If you are bitten and killed by it, you will become a vampire due to a curse. And if a vampire bites you, you will become another vampire. Everyone listened silently and tensely, especially Siri and Tae-ho to Isaac's words. Then the next words he spoke were full of anger. He clenched his fist, trying to restrain himself as he told them, "About 20 dwarves here are the only survivors." Though she had heard this, Siri was still confused, so she asked for more information. "Does it have any special characteristics?" And he replied, "It is very large and has a gray body, a bald head and black eyes. Its nails are constantly growing and retracting. It seems that fighting it physically is more effective than using magic." Hearing the description, it seemed to be a super dangerous vampire. Seeing the fire burning inside his teammates, Siri asked, "Do you plan to take revenge, Isaac?" But instead of inciting him, she offered advice, "If you do, it's better to postpone it for now. While she continued to speak, we need to regroup and return." That's safer. His face darkened. The dwarves in that tribe were still determined. "No, we have to do it now." However, it seemed Isaac had been persuaded and spoke, "There's something more important than revenge." And then he immediately revealed with a bizarre smile, "Recently in this mine, we discovered an unt." Hearing these new words, the entire group of warriors had their eyes wide open, experiencing extreme culture shock and surprise beyond belief. Runfufi was also stunned by this, his voice slightly stuttering. "You uwant, what is that?" Siri, with her leader-like attitude, though her face was slightly tense, remained silent and calm. The whole crowd clamored after the hot news was revealed, shouting in unison, "Discovered it?" But Tae-ho looked quite smug at this time. His face showed no change, and he even expressed his contempt. It was because the two people in front of him kept asking each other, "What is it?" That's why he judged them. "Why, don't you know, but you always act so surprised." Leading the group, Siri and the people behind her kept discussing, "I didn't know that unt was such a magical thing. That's why it's truly a surprise. If it's such an item, we must go and get it. Of course, we can let them steal such a precious thing." The bald guy revealed, I know, it's really amazing," making Runfi ask, "All right, explain it to me. What exactly is it?" After sending out a signal for help, he immediately received a response. "It is called the Iron of the Gods. It is the hardest material in the world, and it also amplifies the power of ancient runes. Mjolnir's made from unt." Having talked this long, they had also killed time, and were close to the mouth of the cave, continuously affirming, "We cannot let a weapon like Mjolnir fall into the enemy's hands. We must handle this matter immediately." However, when they reached a certain point, Isaac immediately stopped them and demanded, "Stop, we're here, it's over there." What appeared in front of them was a castle with a jagged design. He also informed the group that the sacred anvil is on the highest floor. Un is there, so the vampire is also there. Un can only be refined by starlight and moonlight, and only with that anvil. Hearing the somewhat strange crafting method, Tae-ho asked suspiciously, "Starlight and moonlight, but how? In a place underground like this?" Then Isaac, understanding his question, explained, "The top of the tower connects to the ground. A part of the ceiling can open up." Having grasped and processed the new information quite well, Tae-ho calculated in his head, "This is very valuable information. It's around midday now. That vampire will definitely be weaker in the sunlight." The giant wooden door slowly opened, revealing a burst of dust billowing out. The entire army held their weapons, all of them tense and ready to defend against the possibility of a surprise attack. Seeing that, Siri quickly and decisively ordered, "We will quickly attack head-on charge," as if they became zombies but still knew how to eat and enjoy luxury and nobility. Suddenly being interrupted, they glanced. Has anyone touched anything? Has anyone done anything? Because of that, touching their food was a taboo, and the two sides began to attack each other in a bloody battle. One side was a group of strong, muscular, resilient warriors. The other was a group of bloodthirsty, cursed zombies with a bite that could shock you completely. And there was a small group following Siri, including Taeho, Rin-Fi, charging ahead, fighting hard. And on the other side, the trio of Say-Hi brothers, with red eyes, screamed, threatening those around them. It was still her Siri, full of energy, resolutely commanding, first squad, defense. All the warriors in that group charged forward, using their wooden shields with iron rims to smash the zombies' faces without mercy. Their main responsibility was to be the strongest defensive wall, protecting the important people inside. Siri's voice rang out, reminding follow the dwarf warriors, the 5 great brothers, the #1 zombie exterminators. What no one expected was the secret family heirloom technique, the whirlwind. Were they disciples of Ninja Go? The person wearing the winged hat spun around and around, smashing all the bones wherever they went, scattering them into pieces. While the clearing service was taking place, Siri quickly seized the opportunity and yelled, Taeho, let's go in, and he replied, understood. She went but didn't forget to leave Azak in charge. With all his experience, he ordered fire, shoot continuously without stopping, as a way of responding to the rain of arrows they had received earlier. And he continued with his huge cannon. The moment he put on his goggles, he showed them his fiery eyes, hinting, sorry, those who used to be my comrades. After that, he accelerated fully, unleashing a burst of fire. He was like a 5-star chef cooking all that zombie meat. At the same time, Taeho's group, who had just run, sensed the thick, black smoke. They could not see anything. They only knew that they had to rush forward quickly. Behind that door was the sacred anvil. They were anxiously awaiting what was to come. The whole group waited in front of it, still a bit hesitant, but then they all agreed on one decision, let's go in, and then the door slowly opened. In just a gap, was already visible. It was lying in a chest left in the open on the anvil. Oh my god, with just one throw, Isaac had dealt with the entire front line. He charged ahead. He only saw the shiny box and said, that's but then he noticed the missing vampire and asked, where is he? With his observation skills, Taeho immediately discovered him and pointed, shouting, over there, on the ceiling, making them all look at the same time. He's hanging upside down, motionless, his whole body purple. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Rin-Fi had to eliminate him completely, yelling, shoot arrows, everyone, get ready. Then Taeho also started to assess the situation. Compared to the giant gnoll, he was smaller, but there was something strange emanating from him. A dense wave of murderous intent made everyone terrified. Welcome to beat Stragos. The others raised their bows as ordered, aiming. But before they could finish yelling, now was officially his time. He stretched out both hands, killing Rin-Fi's allies before his very eyes. Taeho couldn't even believe his eyes. His eyes widened in horror. The monster Stragos flew straight to him, not the entire group. He put his face close to Taeho's and softly asked, how did you guys get in here? Then at this moment, Stragos put a claw into his neck, causing Taeho to bleed and threatening, this treasure belongs to me now. Since when was that the case? After being shielded by the guards, stopping the skeleton dwarf zombies from entering, having received the signal, Taeho's group rushed in after the sea of fire. When they went inside the sacred anvil, Stragos suddenly came closer behind them, even though they were defending themselves. A scary enemy had appeared in front of Taeho and his team. Would they be able to survive this time? Let's see what happens next. At this moment, he landed and put his face close to Taeho, putting his clawed hand into his neck, making it bleed while threatening him, don't move, if you don't want your head to fall to the ground. Not only was he careful, he knew the rest would do something. Stragos, without even looking, just raised his hand behind him to warn, and you too. This made Azak sigh, damn it. In this situation, Siri anxiously checked on her teammates. Rin-Fi, are you okay? Hearing her whisper, he replied, I'm fine. But noticing the situation in front of him, Rin-Fi had to admit, but it's a bit difficult to shoot an arrow now. It seems like he deliberately spared us. However, his situation was the opposite. Because he heard their conversation, Stragos opened his mouth wide, licking his long tongue back and forth as he confirmed. That's right. Warriors with abilities like yours are a waste to kill. Making Taeho's eyes widen in terror. But it wasn't as easy as that. He revealed something even more shocking, so you will be reborn as my powerful vampire warriors, green-skinned zombies with rotten teeth and crossed eyes. Just thinking about it made Hida scream loudly. He was no different from her. His eyes were teary and wide, panicking and reciting butter in his head. No way, death is better. With that sharp mouth getting closer to Taeho's face, he had to strengthen his spirits to persuade himself. But if we die, we will become mindless warriors because of those steel warriors. Suddenly from behind Stragos' head, a stone spear shot out and was about to hit the monster's head. However, with his quick reflexes, he easily caught it in the nick of time. At this moment, Taeho also had a chance to escape. Holding the smoking arrow in his hand, Stragos arrogantly threatened in a gruesome voice, do you think you can fight me? But ignoring his boastfulness, the arrow was fired by her. Without any worry or fear in her eyes, Isaac also exclaimed, "Captain Siri," feeling that the leader of their army dared to fight back. That stimulated him. He glared and declared, "That's right, it's better to die fighting rather than becoming the zombie underling of that bastard." As Isaac thought, he immediately fired the flamethrower with an even stronger power than before. Not only was it fired straight up, but it also spread around with immense and fierce destructive power, so scorching hot that just a slight touch would turn you into a roasted pig. However, despite Stragos putting his hands up to shield himself from the attack, he laughed and mocked them. "Ha ha, how pathetic. What a foolish spectacle." After that, he spread his two hands and flew forward. Siri, in that situation, quickly ordered, "Shields, protect Isaac." Immediately receiving the signal, the three gunners quickly placed their shields in front, using their bodies as the center to protect him. Because of that, the flames attacking Stragos gradually faded. He didn't react. It seemed that he would attack directly, but no, he chose to slam the ground hard, creating a shockwave that sent them flying. The whole group was hit and sent flying far away in an instant. Although her body was quite strong, the ground slam was too powerful. Siri was no exception, sliding a long distance. Not easily defeated after the last attack, the clearing team used a move. The three dwarves attacked with a whirlwind, as if they were the Korean version of Ninja Go. The whirlwinds kept spinning, hitting Stragos' body directly and rapidly, attacking his body with continuous kicks. However, those attacks were just like a grain of sand for the vampire monster who was still standing tall. Stragos scoffed, "It's just like being tickled," and then, even more surprisingly, with just his own hands, he blocked all three of the consecutive whirlwinds moving towards the anvil. Since he showed his power, Artejo had to use a strategy. Out of nowhere, he ran to the back, praying in his head, "Good, just like this, just a little bit longer." Every minute and second passed, Taho's face tense, not relaxing at all. Then the moment finally arrived. He immediately flipped the lever down. From the top of the tower, a part of the ceiling slowly opened up, exactly as Isaac had told them earlier. Along with that, light shined deep into the dark space of the tower. That light gradually spread, covering the entire large room. Stragos was immediately hit, burned by a special purple flame, and painfully yelled in agony. As if he had anticipated the problem, Taho didn't hesitate and flipped the lever hard, breaking it. While watching the vampire burn and disappear, Taho said, "I broke it, so it can't be closed anymore." Unlike him, the last move made Stragos directly suffer the sunlight, making him fall to his knees with a loud thud. Smoke still rose from him. As if he had lost his powerful spirit from before, his whole body was limp, his head bowed as if he had just been grilled. The three dwarves could not look away. At first, seeing that the monster was no longer attacking, the whole group gathered, wondering, "What do we do now?" However, at this moment, Rinfrefi, with sweat dripping down his face, asked anxiously, "Tiho, I'm just asking out of curiosity." Then, he immediately turned to the left and wondered, "But do you know how to kill a vampire?" At that moment, Tiho just touched his chin, looking somewhat worried and hesitant. I'm not sure. Should we stab him in the heart?" Then with another idea, he said, "Or should we wait for him to die on his own?" In a moment that seemed safe, Taho suddenly noticed something wrong and widened his eyes. He immediately warned the team, "He's chanting some kind of spell," making them quickly come to their senses and realize, shouting in unison, "He's summoning a storm." Then, not wanting to waste any more time, they gritted their teeth in tension, deciding, "Let's end him now." At this moment, mini-bats appeared from nowhere. In that moment, they were hit with hammers, knives, and axes. But there were not just a few of them. Once they were called, there was a whole swarm. On top of the tower was a mass of black bats. Seeing that Taho could only yell, "Damn it, it's too late." And that wasn't the end of the problems. The two sides of his body suddenly revealed a pair of huge wings. Stragos had evolved into his second form in an instant. He now had 3 green eyes, and his jaw with pointed teeth jutting out looked terrifying and horrific. Then he flapped his wings, creating a terrible gust of wind above their heads. Having learned from the last time, Stragos angrily yelled, "I can let my guard down. I will make sure you can even touch me." From his throat, something neon green suddenly appeared. Before that strange sight, Taho was shocked, couldn't close his mouth. He's about to spit out something. Before they could even prepare, as soon as he finished speaking, Stragos spat out green phlegm in the form of an acid ball. While he was running away in fear, he didn't forget to warn, "Run to the corner, you guys." Then, one of the people inside just stood there staring blankly. And the result was nothing left. A full skin peel, leaving only bones behind in a blink of an eye. And it wasn't just one. There were dozens, making them quickly dodge. Would his shout, "Heroes, how long you planning on running?" But regardless of what Stragos wanted to say, Taho and Runenfi could only curse, "Ha, damn it, the whole arena is covered in poison," and then quickly dodged through them. Having been annoyed by the whole group, but not being able to do anything, taking advantage of the two running, he spat out more poison, making it even more difficult. Seeing that, he had to tell him, it's hard to find a place to run anymore. Therefore Taho made a bold decision. He stopped running, took out his sword, activated the power from his legs, gathering water energy, emphasizing in his head, I can let this end like this. Then he jumped up with a powerful force, monstrously. While he was pushing his feet down, he sensed, you dare to rush straight at me, you are truly a fool. Simply seeing that Taeho was charging over, Stragos threw a ball of acid down as a welcoming gift. He didn't waver. His eyes glowed, focusing forward. And he quickly weaved through it, with his super speed, dodging the attack. In an instant, he was able to get close to the vampire monster. At this moment, it seemed as if he was appearing in many places. He tried to spit everything until his last breath. Noticing something abnormal, Stragos frowned in disbelief, even the last one is just an afterimage. But without directly attacking, Taeho added a teleportation, appearing behind Stragos when he spat out the poison ball. Now was the right time to counterattack. Taeho yelled loudly, taking a stance to prepare to fight, and hit the vampire's head hard from behind. He hit the monster that he thought was as hard as iron, and the shock made him stunned. Seeing that he was unharmed, Stragos laughed mockingly and teased him, too bad, that sword can't even scratch my skin. Perhaps having missed so many cool moments made Taeho forget something. His voice trembled slightly. Inevitably sitting right on the monster's shoulder, he gently exclaimed, ouch. Suddenly, he jumped from one person to another. He asked hesitantly, what are you doing, making him gently reply, well, it's because of the momentum. Regardless of what was going on, Stragos cursed, get off me now. Hearing that, Taeho hesitated a little, wondering, even if you make me get off, how can I get down from this high? He didn't care, replying flatly, that's not my problem. In this situation, no matter how stubborn the vampire Stragos was, it was useless. He started asking, alright, how about this? I'll drop you to the ground first, then we'll all fight, and without any hesitation he agreed, okay, sounds reasonable. While flying in mid-air, he was pleased, like it was all going according to plan, you idiot, I'm gonna throw you straight into the ground. At that moment, a light suddenly appeared in Taeho, making him surprised, hearing that he was annoyed, what is it now? And kept watching Taeho, who was frozen. Wheat. Gradually, the energy escaped from his body. It randomly made him lose control. Why now? In this situation, from below they could only see blue light. Siri and Renanfi guessed a new epic has appeared. Will there be any surprise next? Taeho was riding on Stragos' back. A new epic has appeared at this time. Hyujin also screamed, hey, what are you doing? Don't mess around. He opened his system panel and replied coldly, stay still, I'm trying to concentrate. He was still very angry. What did you say, you little brat? How dare you? An energy surge made Taeho panic. A majestic eagle appeared. He thought in amazement, I got it, the power of the dragon knight Kalstad, the pinnacle of flying creatures, from griffins and wyverns to even dragons. A majestic warrior stood on the dragon's head, both Kalstad's mounts. Stragos appeared against a blue background, Epic, the commander of dragons. Taeho controlled it, flying in the air, gently pulling its ear to the side, then commanded, alright, slowly come down now. The people below looked up in amazement. Isaac even blurted out, I don't know why, but it looks cuter this way. Taeho and Stragos, he didn't forget to praise it, alright, good boy. His teammates looked at him doubtfully. Runefus spoke up. So what do we do now? Many people gathered around Stragos, petting it, so cute. Can I touch it too? Siri stood on the side, silently watching them. Everyone's hands caressed Stragos' head with delight, so soft, so good. Siri hesitantly reached out her hand. She grabbed one of its cheeks and gently pulled it. Perhaps from being petted too much, Stragos seemed angry. Seeing it like that, Taeho was worried. The feathers on its body became sharp. It roared angrily, how dare you lowly beings mock me? Stragos nearly lunged to attack everyone. I will never forgive you, you bastard. I will crush you into pieces and swallow you whole. The four of them panicked. Runefus and Siri shouted continuously, oh no, we can't control it anymore. Prepare to fight. He was just as worried, thinking the epic isn't complete yet. The time I can control it is limited. If that's the case, he climbed onto its back once more. Stragos returned to its gentle state. Taeho shouted, as if to reassure everyone. I'll try to inflict as much damage as possible. Let's combine our strength and defeat it. Everyone wholeheartedly supported him. We're counting on you, Taeho. Taeho pointed to the sky and commanded, let's go fly as high as you can, Stragos. It carried him, flying through the large hole in the roof. The two of them soared into the sky. They flew straight towards the sun. The intense sunlight almost scorched Stragos' feathers. Taeho shouted decisively, now go full speed, down to the ground. A green light plummeted to the ground, creating a large crater. Taeho looked at the crater and channeled his power into his hands. The power from both hands formed a massive energy epic, the warrior's sword. Taeho leaped up high, shattering the skull. He slammed down onto the ground, making the ground erupt with large rocks. The smoke dissipated. He stood there, panting from exhaustion. After seeing something, Taeho shouted, of course, it's still alive. A shout rang out from behind him, get out of the way. Runef lunged towards him like a mole. Seeing Renfu running towards him, Taeho quickly ran away. A large explosion erupted behind him. The explosion sent Taeho tumbling forward, a few meters away. Runef also ran towards the fire, add more fuel, die. The white skeleton inside was almost accepting its fate. I curse you. He was lying on the ground, using his hands to cover his mouth, thinking, wearing that thing on your back, no one here is normal. Taeho slowly stood up. Run and Fi was still in shock. Taeho, is it dead? He looked at the raging fire in front of him and replied uncertainly, I think it's dead. The whole group approached the strange object in front of them. The surrounding space fell silent. On a high stone table, there was a glowing golden box. Everyone was staring at it intently. The box slowly opened. Looking at the item inside, everyone was amazed. Isaac couldn't help but exclaim, this is the architect's tear. He took out a small blue diamond and held it in front of the three of them. The three of them looked at it with disappointment. Losing it wasn't that big of a deal. We worked that hard just for this. Seeing their indifference, Isaac was angry. You don't know what you're talking about. He was so angry that he jumped. This is more than enough to make a ring. Seeing this, the three of them just whispered. He said he could make Mjolnir with it. Just forget about it. Isaac put the diamond back in the box and closed the lid. He turned the box to Taeho and Siri and instructed, I will leave the honor of forging these fragments of unto the Valhalla craftsman. The bright sunlight shone on him. As you can see with our current situation, we don't have time to melt it, nor can we protect it. Siri took the box and replied seriously, I understand. We respect your decision. We promise to bring it back safely. Run and Fi was excited, so let's eat now. Isaac also very enthusiastic, of course we'll treat you to a whole barrel of beer. It's only right to treat our benefactors. He and some of the men were delighted. Great, so manly, dwarf beer. But Siri turned around and immediately extinguished their joy. No, we don't have time. She looked at him seriously. We have to get back quickly. Isaac, the others could only shout in vain. Seeing that his plan to treat them couldn't be carried out, he thought for a moment, well, I guess that can't be helped. We can't let our benefactors go back empty-handed. Remembering something, Isaac smiled triumphantly. All right, follow me. A gate was opening. He led Taeho's group inside. Looking at the scene inside, he and his teammates were stunned. Inside the room were many weapons. They couldn't help but marvel. This is the legendary dwarf armory. Two people excitedly picked up weapons and admired them. Dwarf weapons. These are masterpieces. On the other side, Run Fi's group was also enjoying their time. Dwarf armor. Seeing that he wasn't planning on choosing any weapons, Isaac spoke. Taeho, don't just stand there staring. Pick something for yourself. Hearing that, Taeho was startled. Yes. His eyes emitted two streams of green energy as he considered, perhaps, if I analyze them with my long eye. His eyes scanned the swords hanging on the wall. Indeed, there is a hierarchy. Taeho had noticed something, thinking that's the one. Outside, at an imposing iron monument, a group of people came out from the inside. Isaac stood in the middle of the group of dwarves and said clearly, thank you all once again for avenging our brothers. He didn't forget to look at Taeho and praise him. Taeho, you have a good eye. Taeho was wearing a new cloak, thinking the eagle cloak is just a green item in the armory. He didn't forget to respond to Isaac, I just found it light and durable. Does it have any other properties? Isaac pointed at the cloak and explained, you need a chant to be able to use it. I'll teach you. If things get bad, you can use it to return to the fortress immediately. A large bird was flying in the sky. Its eyes were very bright and could talk. Wow, this is so interesting. Its flying speed was increasing more and more. When it saw its target, it was very excited. I can see the Black Fortress. Amazing, let's fly there. Whoa, Valhalla. Changing the scene to the Black Fortress area. Inside the office, Taeho's group, including him, Runnifi, and Siri, were discussing their plan with Artigate Ret. Ravada Gabert held a small chest in her hand. She said to herself, and we protected the unt. This is the unt the dwarves entrusted to us. She held a small blue gem in her hand and thought, it's so small, but on the outside, she said, you have brought back something amazing. Well done. Those fallen warriors will be reborn as glorious warriors. Then she instructed the three of them, I'll take care of the rest, you all go back and rest. The three of them walked out with strong steps, their footsteps echoing in the silent corridor. Suddenly, Run F leaned closer to Taeho and whispered, do you want to go for a drink? He just smiled, no, I'm too tired. Siri turned to him and praised, you did a great job, Idun's warrior, Taeho. You contributed the most. Hearing that, Taeho blushed embarrassed and, scratching his head, no, if it weren't for everyone's help. Run and Fi didn't give up and kept pestering him. So you're not going for a drink? He replied coldly, no, disappointing Run and Fi, making him click his tongue. Right after, the three of them arrived at their destination. Taeho remembered the wolf-like monster and couldn't help but shudder. Stragos is really powerful, summoning dark clouds and storms, transforming. This is no joke. Then he summoned a mysterious blue energy. He pondered, but because of that I received a lot of ancient runes when I defeated him. After seeing the notification, he happily clenched his fist, excited, only 1% left. Then he wondered, I wonder what will happen when I reach 10%. On the snowy mountain peak, Raijin Laifi was scouting, her eyes carefully scanning the surroundings. While searching, she realized she had gone too far. Did I go too far? I should go back. Suddenly, her eyes fell on something, and they widened in surprise. A giant foot of a strange monster kicked up the white snow. The snow-covered rocks immediately crashed down, creating a chaotic scene. Raijin Li crouched down to keep her balance, wondering this trembling is unusual. She hesitated, wondering, should I approach and identify what that is, or... She stood there silently, watching, confused about what to do next. A giant swan flew in. Raijin Li jumped up, creating a pose called the swan wing cloak. She rode the swan, but her expression was full of concern. Approaching like this will be very dangerous. Ravat Jipret suddenly jumped up, slamming her hand on the table, roaring, an invading army. Raijin Li had been standing there the whole time. She looked very awkward and could only utter, huh. Her mind was a little shocked. Whoa, I'm back early. I've already finished reporting. Ravat Jipret slammed both her hands on the table, decisively saying, at this rate, the battle will start by noon tomorrow at the latest. I will request assistance from Valhalla. Raijin Li was still confused. Why don't I remember reporting? Because this is so urgent, I must be confused. In another location, Siri said sternly, since things have come to this, everyone should rest early. She held up one finger, signaling, no alcohol. Runef clinked glasses with Bjorn, startled, huh? Bjorn complained, why does it have to be so difficult? Ignoring the two of them, Siri looked around. I don't see Taeho anywhere. Where is he? The scene changed to another location. Someone's legs were moving, the heavy footsteps echoing in the silent space. Taeho looked around, confused. There probably isn't anyone here. He held something in his hand, telling himself, I must use this item well, and I must use it correctly. His eyes were determined, reminding himself, let's train until tomorrow's battle. Time passed until the next morning, at the Black Fortress. Inside the office, a young woman came to meet with Ruti Gibrit and Erjijin Li Fi. The girl with the red-tipped blonde hair and two wing-shaped clips on her head was Ingrid Van Kurai of the Njord Legion. She announced, I have brought 500 low-level warriors. How many enemies are there? Both sets of eyes turned to her. Raijin Li Fi spoke first. At least 6,000, Rach Jipret added. Even if we gather everyone, we'll only have about 2,500. Raijin Li Fi despaired and said what she thought. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about this situation. In this emergency, I will activate the defense magic. Then the three women stepped forward together with courage. Let's go, for Asgard and the 9 realms. The scene changed to the snowy mountains. The massive foot of the monster stood there, as if ready to destroy everything. On the other side, a fully armed army was standing. A loud voice shouted, prepare for battle. Immediately, the whole army charged into battle, shouting with great enthusiasm. The leader shouted, for the god Thor, that was Braichi of the Thor Legion. On this side, Siri decisively ordered, Ulla Legion, prepare to fire for Asgard and the 9 realms. In another location, Taeho was struggling with his weapon, a lightning crossbow with a shock effect that activates on impact. He thought, I need a long-range weapon. He rushed forward, raising the crossbow towards the enemy, telling himself for Hida, then paused and shouted for Idun. Facing them, the monster army refused to be outdone. They gathered together and roared terribly. On the ground, the huge, ferocious monsters moved, while in the sky, the monster birds flew. Thousands of arrows rained down from the sky, piercing the bodies of the monsters. They roared in pain, the sound echoing in the air. However, many of them used shields to block the arrows. Suddenly, the anchors shot up into the sky. They clung tightly to the stone pillars high above. The monsters, one after another, desperately clung to the ropes and climbed up. Up above, 2 guards were ready and waiting. They poured buckets of boiling water down on the monsters, laughing and mocking. You won't be able to climb up here. Have some boiling water, the monsters screamed in pain. On the other side, 3 warriors were carrying huge boulders and throwing them down below. The series of huge rocks fell with such force that dust and sand flew everywhere. Nearby was the Wei Ven monster. It immediately went crazy, roaring and charging, attacking everything in its path. And then it charged straight at the building where the warriors were standing, smashing it to pieces. On the other side, the monsters didn't give up, still trying to climb up. Finally, the monsters managed to reach the top, and a chaotic battle between humans and ferocious beasts immediately broke out. The scene became extremely chaotic with brutality everywhere. Runefi raised his weapon and fired, creating a huge explosion. On this side, Taeho and his teammates were still fighting fiercely. While fighting intensely, he suddenly looked up at the sky in shock when he saw something. In the sky, a series of giant monsters were flying, covering the sky. He shouted, there's something in the sky. The monsters were riding on large dragons, rushing towards them. A dragon roared, releasing fire. Everyone was shocked. They're wyverns. The fire from its mouth roared and attacked the people below, causing them to scream, it's too hot. Raijin Li Fi raised her hand to the sky, her palm glowed, and she shouted a prayer, O sacred power of the ancient runes. Thanks to some terrifying holy power, a huge barrier covered the entire area where they were fighting. Raijin Li Fi, using her hands to create an invisible wall to block the fire from the dragons, turned to announce, the resistance of the ancient rune barrier will decrease when attacked. We must eliminate the enemies in the sky. Taeho suddenly touched his shoulder. Then suddenly, he rushed to the stone wall. Siri called out his name, Taeho. A small figure launched into the air. The sunlight shone on the small but determined person. It's my turn now. In his heart, he thanked, "It's all thanks to you, Eagle Cloak." Then he threw a punch while shouting. Tay leaped up, a punch ready in his hand. His cloak lit up, his whole body surrounded by a golden light, and with its help, he leaped high. His arms gradually grew into a pair of bird wings, then his whole body transformed. Tay had completely turned into a hawk. He flew up, casting his blue eyes downwards. Tay looked down and thought, okay, it seems no one noticed. Facing the chaotic scene below, he had planned, "It's time to show the results of last night's training." Tay shouted, "I'm coming." Using the advantage of a hawk, he flew down quickly. He aimed straight at the dragon in front of him and charged. He held out his hawk claws, as if preparing to grab his prey like a hawk. Suddenly, from the hawk's feet, his legs transformed back to normal, and his body gradually transformed back to its original state. He mercilessly kicked a nearby monster in the head, shouting "Monster Bird Kick." While the dragons around him were stunned, not knowing what had happened, Tay had successfully mounted a Wyvern. Mission success? He was happy and proud of his achievement. "This Wyvern is mine now." The dragon seemed to be submissive, letting Tay ride it comfortably. He was given the nickname Saga, the Dragon Rider. Tay held out his hand, wanting to summon a spear. "I need a spear," the Saga warrior spear. A second later, instead of a spear, a bamboo pole appeared. He stared blankly. "What the hell is this? A bamboo spear? I have no other choice. I have to use it." So he had to pick it up to fight, and he shouted, "Let's go, Wei Ven." The dragon obediently roared once and followed. As quick as lightning, it flew fast and spewed fire from its mouth. It spat out a large flame, destroying a dragon, one of its own kind. And so, it destroyed one dragon after another. The dragons that were hit by its flames couldn't resist and fell down. Tay, riding it, flew past and shouted, "Next." In front of him was a difficult challenge. A group of monsters and stronger dragons were attacking. Tay, holding the bamboo pole in his hand, displayed his skills brilliantly. He used his strength and speed to make the bamboo pole seem like a higher-class weapon. His movement speed was very fast. You couldn't clearly see his attacks, only the bamboo pole passing through the large dragons. Very quickly, 3 or 4 were pierced through. The large dragons he had pierced through all fell down without control. He finished his move and looked back coldly. It seems victory depends on skill. Even if it's a bamboo pole, it can become a spear. The people below watched this scene and cheered happily. "Well done. I done's warrior. I done. The scene around here was desolate. The dragons had been completely destroyed by Tay alone, one after another falling down. The cheers of joy still echoed, "Hooray for Idun." Raijin Leafy below also praised him. "That's amazing." He single-handedly took out the entire Wyvern squad. She seemed to see something in the sky, her expression suddenly becoming panicked. Raijin Leafy shouted a warning, "It's not over yet. Idun's warriors, something is coming." As soon as those words were spoken, a terrifying monster with claws appeared. In front of them, a group of strange monsters were flying in. The sky was red. "It's the Merry Army." Tay gritted his teeth. "There are too many to take down one by one. If that's the case." He had a plan and ordered the Wyvern to descend. "Let's land, Wyvern." It immediately rushed straight to the ground. They flew towards the wall where the army was standing. Tay, riding the Wyvern, flew down very quickly. He leaned down and called out, "Captain Siri." She understood his intention and quickly ran over. The two of them simultaneously reached out their hands, one wanting to pull up, and the other trying to grab the hand. The two of them quickly succeeded and flew up, sitting on the Wyvern's back. It followed orders and turned towards the endless merry army. The two of them, in sync, got ready to fight. The two of them combined and drew a bow with dozens of arrows pointing out, the never-missing arrows of the Saga Witch. The arrows were shot out, each with high damage, hitting each of the monsters. In the sky, crossbow explosions occurred continuously. The monsters struck by the bolts could not resist and fell down. The people below couldn't help but cheer with joy and pride. Raijin Leafy did not hesitate to praise him. "Very impressive, Idun warrior. You have greatly contributed in this battle." At this moment, the sky shook as if something ominous was about to happen. That's right, the sky was suddenly pierced by something like a meteor. Due to friction with the atmosphere, it was surrounded by a large fire, bringing along a blazing flame that fell down. A loud boom echoed. The surrounding ground was also affected, shaking, and even cracking and collapsing. That was the result of the meteor falling. Now it was stuck straight into the ground. Smoke rose all around due to the fire. Taeho looked down in shock and exclaimed, "What, down from the sky? It's like..." The meteor slowly cracked open, revealing a huge black thunderbolt. A loud crash came from the rock. The earth surrounding it cracked and flew out. Images of Longfur slowly appeared. Along with it, eyes flashed with a creepy blue light. It took a huge step forward. Then it took another step forward. When its whole body was revealed, Siri and Taeho exclaimed in horror, "What is that? Its size is terrifying." This huge, ferocious monster was the giant Hat Gut warrior of Utgard Loki, the Giant Gut. The large, ominous monster slowly approached. Everyone was terrified and shouted, "It's so huge, how can we fight it?" The monster looked down at the small group of people with overwhelming power. Its fierce eyes showed its contempt for the enemies who were too small. Siri, who was now riding a wyvern with Taeho, said to him, "Taeho, let's retreat quickly." Drop me near Rolf. He nodded okay. The giant monster picked up a boulder and prepared to smash it down. Raijin Leafy tried to stop it. She raised her hands up along with the sparkling Holden holy power. Oh, God Odin, ancient holy power. Without waiting, the monster immediately used its overwhelming power to strike the protective shield made of holy power. The surrounding space began to shake violently. Even the soldiers inside the protective shield were swept up and thrown around, screaming in fear. Raijin Leafy struggled to hold up the protective shield, her face contorted. Her strength was not enough to stop the monster's attack. It roared and continued to break the protective shield, making it crack nonstop. It hit the shield again with a devastating blow, making the space shake violently. Raijin Leafy could no longer withstand it alone this time, but she gritted her teeth and endured. The shield that seemed safe now had significant cracks. She yelled, "We need to restore the shield." Ratgeprit stepped in to support the shield. "Are you okay, Raijin Leafy?" She gritted her teeth. "Yeah, but at this rate we can only withstand a few more hits." Ratgeprit also worriedly said, "We are not strong enough to face this enemy with low-level warriors. I wish I could use that power." In this near-death situation, she wanted to use a very powerful ability, the true power of a Van Kari.